go to www.thefacesofmars.com. That's www.thefacesofmars.com.
Oh, yes, indeed. We will not go quietly. Boy, what a pun and what a fitting tune for this night's Martian Revelation of January 12th or the 13th, depending upon your time zone as this airs down through time. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and all you ETs out there on the bite waves of the internet and wherever you're at down through time monitoring this show. I'm Gary Legier, the Mars Revealer, known also as the Mad Martian, and I would like to welcome you all to the Martian Revelation that is upon you all again now. And you're listening to this broadcast through, globalradionetwork.com, and obviously on www.thefacesofmars.com. But if you're not at thefacesofmars.com, please go there. And just above my mug there, of my face, as you scroll down the page from the top a little bit, you'll see the player for this show. Press the play button. And boy, again, we will not go quietly. Such a lot of things going on. Many unexpected things. Many things to where which change is just needed and needed to be brought about, no matter the circumstances behind them. The Martian Revelation is still here. And after the Tonight Show with our guests, I'm going to speak a little bit about some comments I have, just for the listeners to this show, that they be able to appreciate and fill in for some information of what the deal is, or at least what the prospective situation is of how we're going to proceed forward. Because as of you know now, many of you, or if many of you not know yet, the shield of L&M, that is the symbol of truth for the Martian Revelation, and for the war which we all fight against those evil dark mission is to bring you the truth one show at a time, has now been decommissioned. That's right, people. L&M Radio Network, as we had known it, has been decommissioned. But never fear, because the Martian Revelation is here. And not only that, Mike Vara is still here, actually, too, because there's a new shield. The shield was upgraded to a new model of where Michael Vara is leading it, with We Cover Everything.fm, WCET.fm. So as WCET.fm is being transitioned, we shall also be streaming back behind the shield, getting an upgrade of shield, according to Mike. And that's a good thing. Like I said, no matter what circumstances there are, it's forcing change. But one thing that I was told that will never change is that the Martian Revelation is still behind the shield. And Michael Vara as well is by my side in this. And he understands the situation as well as my position. He understands that the show needs to continue to flow forth, being here for you each week as the Martian Revelation unfolds before us, as we make our fate to make that Martian Revelation a reality to us all. But again, I'll touch base on that later after the guests are on. But we do have a pretty interesting show tonight. We have William Saunders that's going to be on with us, as well as George HAAS, both of the Cydonia Institute and co-authors with each other, getting into some Mars anomalies as well as Earth anomalies. But aside from that, so much more I could get into now. But I just say that there's a lot to flow on. Let's flow with the show first. And let's get into some news. Remember, everybody,
go to www.thefacesofmars.com. That's www.thefacesofmars.com.
So, there's good news from Mars. The InSight lander is on track to start collecting data next month. But now the U.S. government may be in partial shutdown mode, but operations to configure instruments critical to NASA's Mars InSight mission on Mars are right on schedule, and things are going swimmingly, as per the latest mission update attests. Our latest update from the Mars InSight mission came on December 20th, following the probe's successful deployment of the SEIS instrument, or the seismic experiment for interior structure, onto the Martian surface. Remember, listeners to this show could appreciate my standing firm position on this is that amongst the classified aspects to this mission of the Mars InSight, they're looking for the subsurface illegals, where again kind of matches, especially to where Vice President Mike Pence, the chairman of the National Space Council, by the way, also stated to us,
and here from this bridge to space, our nation will return to the moon and we will put American boots on the face of Mars.
Anyway, the configuration of this hexagonal-shaped device is still ongoing, but an update from the SAUNDERS team shows they are proceeding as planned. And over the last several weeks, mission engineers have leveled the seismometer, manipulated the cable connecting Mars InSight to the device, and most importantly, balanced 3 of the instrument's 6 internal seismic sensors, while also confirming their functionality. So everything is sound. But once SAUNDERS is set up and running, it will scan for seismic vibrations, offering a glimpse into the red planet's internal activity. Again, the subsurface illegals. Or maybe evidence for the quote-unquote anomalous cloud / volcano coming out from Marcia Mons. Maybe that evidence will be there. It should be, one would think. But the hexagonal device rests passively on the Martian surface, and a tether connects it to the Mars InSight lander. SAUNDERS should be able to detect the slightest vibrations, including those caused by Mars quakes or the thumps of a meteorite impact. Once this important data is transmitted back to Earth, scientists will gain a better understanding of the material that first formed the rocky planets of the solar system, and possibly learn if liquid water or plumes of active volcanoes lie underneath the Martian surface. You see, but that's only half truth. Because again, there's no way that this primitive mission, in that sense as advanced as it is to what we know and what we're doing, is primitive to answer the question of how these rocky planets of the solar system were formed. Stop telling us the lie. We're mature enough now to handle this shit. But soon after Mars InSight's robotic arm placed SAUNDERS onto the surface, mission engineers learned that the device was resting on a slope angled at 2.5 degrees. In full anticipation of this, SAUNDERS is equipped with 3 configurable legs, each of which can be commanded remotely to orient the device along both the horizontal and vertical planes. An operation to level the instrument on December 27th was a success. So that's good news, huh? But SAUNDERS is now perfectly level with the Martian surface, but it's standing too high. The next step, called leveling low, will see the device moved as closely to the Martian surface as possible for optimal data gathering results. Currently, the seismometer's legs are at the midpoint position, so mission engineers have room to work with it. Once it's as low as it could go, the device will be horizontally leveled once more. Mission engineers were also able to recenter sensors inside the device. SAUNDERS is equipped with 6 internal seismic sensors, 3 of which are broadband, called VVBs, or very broadband, and 3 other are short-period sensors. As Emily Lakdawala wrote in an article for the Planetary Society, the 3 VVBs were successfully recentered, and they appear to be working. The VVBs are pendulums mounted on pivots that are nearly frictionless as possible. When the ground moves, it sets the pendulums in motion as well, but the motions they're seeking to detect are incredibly small, so small that to have any hope of detection, the VVBs have to operate in a vacuum and perfectly level. The VVBs were the biggest headache for the Mars InSight development effort. The failure of the vacuum chamber developed, which led to Mars InSight's costly launch delay, but the VVBs were tricky bits of hardware even before that problem. It was a hard road to get to where we had those wideband sensors to the point where they were working and we could trust them, project scientist Bruce Bernard has said. I always had to worry in the back of my mind that we would get to Mars and they wouldn't work. Gee, that's comforting. But mission engineers commanded the VVBs to center the pendulums on December 31st, but they didn't receive confirmation of the results until January 2nd. News that was greeted by bursts of applause, according to the SAUNDERS team. But the fragile VVBs survived atmospheric entry and landing on Mars, and they're collecting good data. So again, that's good news. Finally, the mission engineers have had to do some cable management. The tether that connects the sites to Mars InSight expands and contracts dramatically owing to the significant temperature fluctuations over the course of the Martian day-night cycle. Needless to say, a cable that shuffles around on the surface and is also connected to a seismometer is not very good. This could interfere with data gathering by introducing unwanted noise, and I'll add or possible slight movement. But the team has literally spent weeks trying to figure out the best orientation for the cable to isolate it as much as possible from SAUNDERS, which they're doing by trying to create lots of slack. And that makes sense. I don't see it really moving too far away. But then again, you never know. But a descent configuration was achieved by the first week of January, but the cable management process is still incomplete. The mission engineers need to ensure that the tether is pinned securely to the surface. To that end, a scoop on the end of Mars InSight's robotic arm will be used to orient a weighted block or a pinning mass to prevent wind from blowing the tether around. So yeah, lots to do. In addition to performing more cable management work, the mission engineers will place the dome of the wind and thermal shield over the sites to protect it from the elements. The mission is currently on schedule and scientific data collection should start in February. And mission engineers also still need to deploy the heat probe instrument, but we'll get to that in due time. And on future shows on the Martian Revelation through WCET.FM as well as globalradionetwork.com. So yeah, that's right. 140 million miles from home. And that's a good segue to this article. That was published originally on September 21st of 2018, but it has been put forth again by protomag.com. 2 years in space will subject the body to unprecedented stresses. Scientists are probing the secrets to survival. As the Mars InSight only paves its way, in my opinion, for what ultimately needs to happen, which is human expansionism, especially when we reflect on what Vice President Mike Pence stated.
And here from this bridge to space, our nation will return to the moon and we will put American boots on the face of Mars.
So NASA wants to send astronauts to Mars by the 2030s. The private aerospace company SpaceX is even more ambitious, aiming for 2024. Yeah! And on the engineering side, it's possible that the necessary spacecraft, launch rockets, and guidance systems could be good to go by then. Indeed. But preparing a crew, however, may turn out to be more daunting. Although people have been going into space for more than half a century, the longest anyone has stayed away from Earth is about 438 days, and no one has ventured further than the moon, a mere 239,000 miles away. But a crewed mission to Mars would be an exponential leap, especially for the human body. The first visitors to Mars will most likely spend 1 year or so in microgravity, pummeled by levels of interstellar and solar radiation no previous humans have endured, while riding in a cramped metal craft to a destination some 140 million miles from Earth. Unlike previous astronauts who have enjoyed real-time communication with Earth and could return relatively quickly if a medical emergency arose, a Mars crew will soon be too far away to do either of those things. Which is why listeners to this show could appreciate we have a term here. You gotta have balls! But a communication lag of up to 21 minutes each way will require crews to be medically self-reliant in emergency situations. But they'll have to be able to diagnose and treat anything that comes up, physical problems such as broken bones or bacterial infections, but also depressed or delusional crewmates without immediate guidance from the ground. Right, in case someone goes Lulu up there, which is always a possibility. But NASA cannot hope to complete its mission without help. But NASA's Human Research Program investigates risks to astronaut health and performance during space exploration and is working to pinpoint the medical dangers of an interplanetary journey. The group's latest roadmap for long-duration space exploration lists about 34 health-related risks that include space-induced bone loss and vision problems, traumatic injuries, and the potential for psychiatric disorders, We look at a broad spectrum of conditions and take stock of our ability to manage them, says Chief HRP scientist, Human Research Program scientist Jennifer Fogarty, who works at the Johnson Space Center in Houston. But NASA cannot hope to complete its mission without help. Contributing to this massive effort are thousands of researchers in medical schools, as well as hospitals, government agencies, and the military. Together, they are working on solutions to the problems of human bodies in outer space, which remain one of the most substantial barriers to exploring Mars and beyond. But again, you got to have balls to pave the way, not send a bunch of monkeys and inhumane tests to figure it out. But on the ground, no one thinks much about the Earth's gravitational pull, but it actually plays a major part in many systems in the body, and living without it can cause a wide range of problems. Astronauts in low-gravity environments experience insomnia, motion sickness, back pain, and nasal congestion, as well as more serious neurological symptoms. Without gravity's resistance, muscles gradually lose strength and endurance, and cardiovascular fitness declines. To avoid those problems, crew members on the International Space Station, the orbiting experimental facility that is a joint project of several national space agencies, work out for at least 12 hours a week on specially modified stationary bicycles and treadmills that simulate the effects of gravity. But notice no one comes up with making an artificial gravitic system. Even Wernher von Braun in the 1950s, for his proposed plan of nuclear spacecraft to take us to Mars, also had artificial gravitic systems that could help alleviate many of these issues and answer for them as well. But more research needs to be done. How can it be done if we don't have any artificial gravitic systems infused in the designs of these spacecraft? Just saying. But anyway, the exercise equipment weighs more than 4,000 pounds and takes up about 850 cubic feet. The Mars gym will have to be much more compact, and the 4 astronauts on NASA's Exploration Mission 2, a 3-week lunar flyby planned for 2023, will test a device called the Rocky for resistance overload combined with kinetic yo-yo. That is the size of a large shoebox, weighs 20 pounds, and can be stowed in about 1 cubic foot. Crew members will use it like a rowing machine for aerobic exercise and to perform strength training exercises with as much as 400 pounds of resistance. Other teams are looking at drugs that might also help astronauts keep their muscle tone. Recent studies on mice aboard the ISS tested a myostatin inhibitor made by Eli Lilly that could reduce atrophy in muscles, a treatment that was developed for patients on Earth with muscular dystrophy, ALS, or other muscle wasting diseases. Astronauts in microgravity are also likely to lose bone mass, about 10 times as quickly as someone with osteoporosis, leading to an increased chance of fractures. In space, the thigh bone, for example, loses an average of about 1.5% of mass each month, adding up to a 10% loss during 6 months in space. And recovery on Earth could take up to 3 years or more. So to counter that, pre-flight genetic testing might one day be used to reveal an inherited propensity to suffer bone loss, leading to extra preventive measures during interplanetary transits. But measuring bone density en route could flag crew members with higher rates of bone loss and help them to take extra precautions. These travelers might get calcium and vitamin D supplements, perhaps coupled with biophosphonate medications used on Earth for osteoporosis treatment. Vision degradation is another peril of microgravity and has affected 6 in 10 astronauts on long-duration missions on the ISS, according to a 2011 study published in the journal Ophthalmology. On Earth, intraocular pressure, fluid pressure inside the eyeball, and intracranial pressure, pressure within the skull, balance to make the eyeball round. But in microgravity, intracranial pressure increases, flattening the back of the eyeball and pressing on the optic nerve. This could cause distortions in vision, including farsightedness, among other problems, which could persist after return to Earth even. And the eyes are essentially a pressure release valve for the head, Fogarty says. In microgravity, the whole system is thrown for a loop. So again, create the artificial gravitic systems. It's a must. It's a no-brainer. But what do I know, right? But one source of this problem is the roughly 2 liters of blood that shift from the legs toward the head during spaceflight, making the face look puffy and potentially adding the vision problems as well. Most interventions, including thigh bands, compression pants, and a vacuum sleep sack, are designed to keep blood in an astronaut's legs. But cerebrospinal fluid, a clear liquid in the brain and spinal column that buffers the brain from changes in pressure, also plays a role. A 2016 study by University of Miami researchers has found that the astronauts returning from months in orbit had significantly higher volume of cerebrospinal fluid near the eyes. Dozens of research groups are working on the space vision problem, testing eyes of mice in the ISS lab and of human volunteers under conditions approximating microgravity. Researchers need to parse multiple interrelated causes and effects, Fogarty says. We might need 4 or 5 countermeasures, and if we interfere without completely understanding the problem, we can really make a bad choice. Well, create artificial gravitic systems. Now, radiation, meanwhile, may pose an even greater risk and limit the amount of time humans could safely spend in space. A 180-day flyby of Mars would expose astronauts to an average radiation dose of about 300 millisieverts. That's about 100 times the average exposure of a person in the United States during the same period of time, and more than 15 times the annual limit for workers in nuclear power plants. A landing mission lasting 860 days would subject astronauts to radiation of 1.01 sieverts, increasing their lifelong excess cancer risk by about 5% and raising the specter of other health problems. Acute radiation sickness can result in vomiting and fatigue, and long-term radiation exposure can mean a greater likelihood of heart disease and may damage the central nervous system. But reducing these risks will require better shielding methods for the spacecraft and new ways to prepare, protect, and repair the human body. I would agree to that. But various types of radiation are known to damage DNA, causing cells to mutate in ways that can lead to cancer and other problems. Fogarty notes that understanding genetic vulnerabilities could eventually help identify those most at risk of harm from radiation, revealing a heightened likelihood of developing particular kinds of cancer, for example, and prompt closer monitoring or additional countermeasures for those astronauts. So scientists in the Harvard Consortium for Space Genetics in the Department of Genetics at Harvard Medical School are developing ways to assess and combat genome damage from radiation. New drugs may also become available. Cellular damage from radiation stems from the formation of reactive oxygen species, also known as free radicals. Molecules that remove free radicals, antioxidants, are a first line of defense. WR-2721, an antioxidant drug used to treat acute radiation exposure, can be toxic and has other undesirable side effects. But another drug, PRC-210, aminothiol, still being tested, appears to offer the same benefits with fewer adverse effects. But much of the space radiation research is conducted at the NASA Space Radiation Laboratory, part of the Brookhaven National Laboratory of Long Island, New York, where scientists could simulate what an astronaut would experience during a 2-year mission to Mars and test the effects of radiation on cells, tissue, and DNA. But the future may hold a laboratory further afield. NASA Gateway, a space transit hub and research station planned for the moon orbit, where space radiation is in full effect, could be ready as early as the 2020s. You better get on it, because there's a lot of people with balls that are wanting to go. But whereas microgravity and radiation will be givens for any Mars voyage, preparing for other medical problems calls for more speculation and a tough calculation of which supplies to pack and protocols to prepare. A catastrophic accident or an acute medical condition requiring emergency care could severely hamper a Mars mission, says Chris Lenhart, an emergency room physician and deputy element scientist in the Exploration Medical Capability Group of NASA's HRP. Lenhart's group examines how often particular medical conditions have happened on a previous space flights, compares them with their frequency on the ground, and runs many of thousands of computer simulations to find the top 100 things most likely to go wrong. Then we look at what it would take to treat each condition, he says. From there, we develop a resource list. Once astronauts land on Mars, where gravity is roughly a third of what it is on Earth, and start exploring, people are going to be falling a lot, Lenhart says. You could try to protect the most fragile spots like the wrists. Fractures may happen anyway, so his team plans to include pain medication or sedation and splitting materials. And for more complex fractures, it will map out the best ways to address the injury. For an emergency that calls for something major, open abdominal surgery, say, the options will necessarily be limited. But such an operation would require a prohibitive amount of equipment and would be complicated by microgravity, which makes it difficult to create a sterile operating enclosure and with other objects possibly floating into view to maintain a clear field of vision for surgery. Lenhart imagined surgery would be attempted only as a last resort, factoring in the unique considerations of every risky action in space. You have to ask which things you could do without and what conditions you may treat partially or not at all, either because it's not serious or because it's futile, he says. A mission to Mars would need a physician on board. I would tend to agree, and that doctor would complete training modules in several specialties, even learning to do the things such as dental extractions. Other crew members would be trained in first aid, as well as basic life support, and would most likely do in-flight computer-based simulations to maintain proficiency. That's a good idea. For less urgent problems, crews could consult with the ground, though it could take up to 42 minutes to transmit an image or a question to Earth from near Mars and then receive an answer. As an alternative, astronauts probably will have access to an artificial intelligence decision support system that will consider crew members' electronic medical records constantly updated with vital signs, including blood pressure readings, exercise routines, carbon dioxide levels, and their most recent medical conversations with the ground. Automating medical systems will be important, whether it's the crew doctor or another team member performing a procedure. We know that the more a person needs to think about, the easier it is to miss a step, Lenhart says. Behavioral issues could also be among the most perplexing on a Mars journey. It's very difficult to know what will happen to a group of people confined indefinitely to a small space isolated from normal social interactions and extraordinarily far from home. Neuropsychological challenges could include anxiety and depression or more serious complications, such as hallucinations and psychosis. Cosmonauts on the Soviet space stations in the 1970s were the first humans to be away from Earth for 6 months or more, and some of them showed significant signs of psychic distress, leading to the termination of several missions. And whereas crews on the ISS during stays lasting around 6 months have managed to avoid major mental issues, they have been helped by close proximity to Earth. They have lots of interaction with the ground and plenty of work and experiments to do, says Gary Strangman, director of the Neural Systems Group at Massachusetts General Hospital and an invocation specialist with the Transitional Research Institute for Space Health at Baylor College of Medicine in Houston. On a round trip in which each leg will take several months to a year, however, with the signal from home becoming ever more distant, a Mars crew will be much more isolated. Astronauts will be screened carefully for major mental disorders and antisocial tendencies, and planners will try to assemble a crew with compatible personalities to work together through months of boredom and whatever emergencies that may occur. Even then, however, individual sensitivity of the stresses of spaceflight will vary, particularly on such an extended voyage, says David Dinges, professor of psychiatry at the University of Pennsylvania, who led a scientific team at the National Space Biomedical Research Institute. To get an idea of what the problems that might arise, researchers study the behavior and performance of people who work in very isolated conditions on Earth. Submarine crews, as well as Antarctic researchers, for example. NASA also operates space analog research stations in remote locations on land as well as underwater. At the Johnson Space Center's Human Exploration Research Analog Facility, volunteer crews are sealed inside a 3-story mock spaceship for trip simulations of 6 weeks or more. During the longest of the 3 Mars 500 simulations, which were conducted between 2007 and 2011, a 6-person international crew lived and worked in a 550 cubic meter spaceship in Moscow for 520 days. The men in this experiment, who performed daily maintenance work, scientific experiments, and exercise, were isolated from Earth's light and day cycles, temperatures, and seasonal conditions. They received limited food and water, had to deal with simulated emergencies, and experienced communication delays similar to those of a Mars mission. In that crew of 6, 2 coped really effectively, and the other 4 experienced a variety of behavioral health problems, says Dinges, who has published 2 papers analyzing the crew members' behavioral changes. Those included mild to moderate depression, stress and physical exhaustion, conflicts with other crew members and with ground control, and altered sleep patterns. 2 of the men accounted for 85% of the behavioral health issues. But sleep problems can be particularly debilitating. Recent astronauts have averaged only about 6 hours of sleep a day, a level that can lead to cognitive and neurobehavioral deficits, and the lack of a daily cycle of light and dark can add to the toll. On a trip to Mars, blue enriched LED lights, like those recently installed on the ISS, can be adjusted to enhance alertness or promote sleep, and sleep aids may help maintain a circadian rhythm of sleep and wakefulness. It will also be important for astronauts to get regular downtime to bolster mood and performance. Because time delays won't permit real-time conversations with the psychologists on Earth, Dinges and others are working on a technology to perform behavioral and performance assessments. Having astronauts write in a digital diary, for example, could create a record of their thoughts and mental states while also serving as a form of self-therapy. Dinges and his colleagues are also developing computerized tests to help the astronauts size up their own emotional processing, spatial orientation, and risk decision-making, among other cognitive factors. We'll also have algorithms to give the crew members a sense of their own profile, along with countermeasures for any deficits that they discover, Dinges says. Those could include antidepressant medications, behavioral modification exercises, or even a chat with an artificial intelligence therapist. I really don't like the sound of that one. But a voyage through space, like any venture of exploration, comes with a measure of risk that no amount of planning can eliminate entirely. It's why you gotta have balls. But those preparing the Mars missions are doing their best to mitigate psychological and physiological harm. But they also recognize that on launch day, much will be out of their hands, Fogarty says. We look at the Human Research Program as an occupational health program, she says, one in which thousands will have lent their expertise to minimize threats, provide protection, and outline responses to any possible emergency. Together, they hope to have everything in place for those whose occupation takes them 140 million miles from home. Very interesting, and very real scientific and down-to-earth aspects about dealing with these issues and how we approach this and grow the balls, because it just doesn't take balls. As you can hear, there's a lot of factors. But if we also add artificial gravitic systems, that would take a big chunk of the risk out of the factor. A big chunk. And if things are big enough and done to help protect us physiologically, psychologically, and biologically. Which now this could segue to also other relevant news to the Martian Revelation show that listeners could appreciate. Yesterday, Elon Musk from newscientist.com. Elon Musk reveals Starship test rocket that looks like 1950s sci-fi. Again, go to www.thefacesofmars.com, scroll all the way down toward the bottom of the page, and you will see a replica of this rocket. It is wild. The future is upon us. The space race is on. Time to get balls. Time to go. So Elon Musk has revealed images of his assembled Starship Hopper test rocket as the entrepreneur continues to explore ways of one day sending people to places as far as Mars to colonize. Let's spell it out right. But the SpaceX founder shared the first real images of the prototype from its Texas launch site, telling Twitter followers it is not a rendering. This is suborbital VTOL, vertical takeoff and landing test, Musk explained. Orbital version is taller, has thicker skins, won't wrinkle, and a smoothly curving nose section. This particular model will be used to test short launches and landings. Earlier this month, Musk said SpaceX was aiming to carry out test flights within 4 weeks, but admitted it could be as long as 8 weeks when unforeseen issues are factored in. And everyone's got to really appreciate the concept of this. For those old schoolers out there with those old 1950s movies showing the rockets, that just look like missiles, sleek, silver, tail fins, that when it takes off, it lands as it takes off vertically. It has been achieved. It's being done. This thing is, wow. To be able to see this and to achieve this and also be able to go. In our lifetime, I want to go. But the design of the rocket resembles classic spacecraft, again from the 50s era science fiction movies, such as the film Destination Moon. Responding to questions from space enthusiasts, Elon Musk said that the first orbital prototype should be ready by June. In November, the rocket was renamed from the Big Effing Rocket to Starship. I still say the Big Effing Rocket is the way to go because he has balls. He doesn't have to push down to these snub nose in the air, turtleneck pace speed controllers of how they say what reality is in space and how we should go and when. Elon Musk is of we the people, and he is a perfect prime representation of what it is to be an American and to make this nation great permanently as he launches us to Mars. So he also tweeted an illustration again of the test vehicle showing a 3-fin ship that looks a lot like the rocket also from the comic book character Tintin, used in the 1954 adventure of explorers on the moon. Starship test vehicle under assembly will look similar to this illustration when finished. Operational spaceships would have windows, etc., Musk tweeted. SpaceX is developing Starship and a giant rocket called the Super Heavy, or the Big Effing Rocket, to take people to and from the moon, Mars, as well as other destinations throughout the solar system. The reusable duo is previously known as the BFR, but Musk changed the name recently. And we know why that is, because NASA pitched a bitch. Bitching at Elon Musk that he has not a right to toke on a doobie, while he comes and graces us with information and knowledge and balls. And he has also a drink, an alcoholic drink, yet inert. When Insight landed, you were bitching about so happy you would start cracking open bottles of wine. Like your shit don't stink. How dare you? Musk is out to bring us balls and the truth and to make our nation great, as well as to aid the Space Force of we the people. This is our vision. You are part of the old policy that was not steering us to succeed, but steering us to globalistic control of our space program, because we wouldn't even have a nation right now, we the people, if Hillary won. They already sold us out. See, this is the type of subjects where it gets deep on this show of the Martian revelation. But that's my opinion, and I have my right to it because that's the way I see it. Don't like it? Oh, well, there's other shows that I'm sure you'll be more interested to listen to. And the people that charge you for their special clubs and to bullshit you and steer you away and avoid from answering the truth that demands to be addressed and validated and vindicated. But the first crewed Red Planet mission for the Big Effing Rocket and 100-passenger Starship could come as early as the mid-2020s if development and testing go well, Musk has said. This work is taking place at both SpaceX headquarters in Hawthorne, California, and the company's test site in South Texas, near the border city of Brownsville. Indeed, the Hopper flights will take off from this latter facility. When they're up and running, both Starship and the Super Heavy Big Effin' Rocket will rely on SpaceX's powerful Raptor engine, which is currently in development. The engines of the Starship test vehicle will be a blend of Raptor development and operational parts, Musk said in another tweet Saturday. The first of those Hopper engines will probably be test-fired next month, he added. The engines that power SpaceX's workhorse Falcon 9 rocket are Merlins. All this space wizardry going on, and NASA feels threatened by Mr. Elon Musk, as well they should. But Mr. Elon Musk is a vision and a pioneer for the future of we the people, as well as for the Martian revelation. Not to mention the Space Force, that'll bring us there. But hoppers are a standard part of SpaceX rocket development. For example, the company flew Grasshopper test vehicles in 2012 and 2013 to gain the expertise needed to land and refly Falcon 9 first stages. The highest Grasshopper flight reached a maximum altitude of about 2,500 feet, or 750 meters. So all that's very interesting. The future is upon us. The space race is upon us. The Martian revelation is upon you all now. And the listeners to this show could appreciate, as well as new ones, I'm sure, as we got a motto on this show: pack 'em and smoke 'em, because you're going to need 'em when we come back and introduce our guest, William Saunders.
I'll be back.
Don't run. We are your friends.
WCET.FM is both celestial and digital. WCET.FM was created to bring back that small station family atmosphere and to bring back the people's voice. WCET.FM is more like a reincarnation of what we once had here in L&M Radio. No false promises, no Hollywood trash, and no middleman. Just real people covering real issues. WCET.FM is in its early stages, but they grow fast. So enjoy and spread the word. WCET.FM, your talk station.
Yes, indeed. I just want to be with you in the moonlights. And you know it, people. Many of you love being with me and want to be with me in the moonlight, too. Because I help bring you to Mars. We're going bypassing the moon. Remember, the moon is classified. That's what the Brandenburg was told. You know? Come out with the nukes going off on Mars. Talk about the ancient civilization on Mars. Talk about whatever you want on Mars. The moon is classified. See you later. Welcome back, everybody. This is Gary Legier, your host, the Mars Revealer, known also as your man Martian. And you're listening to the Martian Revelation Show that is upon you all again now. So again, as we transition, we're broadcasting this show this night through Global Radio Network. So many transitions are taking place, but the show must go on. So let's introduce our guest, Mr. William Saunders. And William Saunders is a retired petroleum geoscientist. He graduated from the University of Alberta in Edmonton with a Bachelor of Science degree, majoring in geomorphology. He worked as a geological technologist in the petroleum exploration and development industry in Calgary, Alberta, Canada, from 1978 until 2014. And he is currently living in Penticton, British Columbia. A lot of that good BC bud coming from up there. But he is an associate director of the Cydonia Institute, along with George HAAS, and a member of the Society for Planetary SETI Research, or SPSR. And Mr. Saunders has co-authored the following articles, peer-reviewed papers, and books related to the anomalous formations on Mars. In 2015, he co-authored a paper, A Composite Band of Facial Formations Within the Winding Valley of Libya Montes on the planet Mars. In 2014, he co-authored a paper, Analysis of the Mars Global Surveyor and Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter Images of the Syria Planum Profile Face on planet Mars. In 2014, he is the executive producer of a video, DVD, titled The Mars Codex, Manuscript of an Ancient Text. 2011 co-authored paper for the avian formation of the south-facing slope of the Argyre Basin on Mars within the Journal of Scientific Exploration, Volume 25, Issue 3 of the fall of 2011. In 2009, he co-authored the Martian Codex, More Reflections from Mars. Also co-authored with George HAAS, who will be a guest in the next hour as well to join us. And in 2005, he co-authored the book along also with HAAS, the Cydonia Codex, Reflections from Mars. So, and I also got to say that he has been on a guest on this show years ago. Damn, I think it was 2002 or 3. You know, but it's really cool to have you back on again, Will. And I know you guys have been doing a lot of work over the years. And what is your impression of where we're at now, down through time, in dealing with the implications and the importance of these features that you have helped analyze and put research forth over the years with Mars, as well as where we're going to go, even jump down to Earth occasionally, which I think you want to focus some on tonight. But what do you think of that? And thanks for being on. It's an honor to have you on again, sir.
Hi, Gary. Yeah, it's been quite a while. Just want to say thanks for having me on, and I am pretty excited about what is happening, actually. The work that George and I started 20 years ago is really starting to take fruition. I think more people are starting to see what we've been seeing and kind of realize that there's a lot more to the planet Mars than what we've been told in the past and even by NASA up to current times.
Indeed. And also with the aspect, hey, you got to give a shout out, the Artscapes. And it seems to be turning out that way, doesn't it? Just as our work, your guys' work, and all of us as a convergence over all this time from the anomaly hunters onward. Boy, damn, 20 years. That's a long time. You know, even longer. Think of those that have seen this, but even decades before that. And the things that they know, the things that they have and see. But again, it's great to have you on. I hope you had a good holidays.
Yeah, it was a nice getaway. I was gone for a couple of weeks, so it was relaxing, and now it's back to work. Back to work on another book.
So what's the next book going to be about, or do you want to get into that later?
Well, no, we're going to be talking about some of it right now. I'm going to be showing how the geoglyphs that we've been seeing on Mars are also on Earth, the same type of geoglyphs. And obviously there's a connection, and I think it's going to be quite exciting. George has found some very interesting stuff that he's wants to get published, and I have as well. I'm not quite as far along as George has been on, or as George is on some of his work, but I'll put my nose to the grindstone here in the next month or two, and try and get something by the spring that I think is going to make a lot of people sit up and take notice.
That's good. Do you guys have a title yet, or that's not on the board at the moment?
Well, George's work, he's published, or he's working at publishing a book called, well, actually, I'm not sure what it's called, a Martian Aviary, Aviary, and it has to do with Cydonia, glyphs on Cydonia, and the one I'm working on, no, I don't have a title for it. I've got a few ideas in mind, but haven't come up with anything yet. So.
All right, yeah, no rush on that. You got to build the content and everything first, and it'll show itself in time, pun intended. So again, all this time that has passed, are you more impressed with the quality of the data we've been getting over the years?
Yes and no. I kind of took a bit of a hiatus from looking at Mars images because I wasn't getting any work done. It was just
it overwhelms you.
Yeah, it overwhelms you. You're trying to concentrate on analyzing something, and then something else comes along, and then you've got other people knocking at your door saying, "Look at this and look at that," and so I kind of stopped looking at Mars for a while, and when the European Space Agency started producing some images, I kind of went back because they seemed to be producing sharper images than what I had been seeing from at least from the Global Surveyor, Mars Orbital Camera. Some of the
too, as it was in many cases.
Yeah, the high-res camera seems to be giving us a lot more information. So I've got back at it a bit, but as I said, I've been kind of concentrating on geoglyphs here on Earth that have a direct relationship since we've been getting more satellite coverage of our planet. People, just ordinary people who are looking at Google Earth have been finding some pretty amazing things.
Yes, indeed. Indeed they have. And I've looked around on Google Earth too in many places, and as well as many others. And many amazing things being found and many amazing things being covered up by Google later. And it's kind of despicable, if you ask me, because all of this, even on our own planet, they have a problem with us seeing and knowing of things that goes against their Darwinian evolution, that they want to discount us and educate us all as actual fact, when there's many things seen on this planet itself, even through Google Earth, that tells another story, well, at least that goes to a further timeline, and where ancient civilizations, more than one, appears to have been, visualized on this planetary surface, and that goes against, again, the norms within all the model they give us. And but there are still a lot of things out there, like you're going to be getting into regards to your work. And everyone go to www.thefacesofmars.com, and you can scroll on down, and you can see his bio there for William Saunders, and also check out the first set of images, which is features I think he wanted to get into on this show about, and speak about. Well, go for it, William. Tell us all about it. I think it's a good time to get into it because, as he said, these artistical, anthropomorphic, pictographic imagery, symbolisms, and whatnot, or similar in artistic design, it can be seen on both worlds. Is that right there, sir?
Yes. One of the interesting aspects of the geoglyphs that George and I were finding in Cydonia when we first started out were very tricky, especially for myself. I have a background in geomorphology and geology. So when I'm looking at landforms, I'm looking as to how they occur naturally. And what I was seeing was very conflicting because I was seeing formations that looked natural in one aspect, but artificial in another. In other words, they looked like they had been created naturally, but they had created unnatural things. And so I kind of took that line with me to looking at Google Earth. And the first image that you see is very similar to that. It's called the Badlands Guardian, and people who are maybe familiar with the Badlands of the Dakotas, they run up into Canada and up into eastern Alberta through part of western Saskatchewan and eastern Alberta. And the pictograph that you're seeing there is very strikingly similar to a native Canadian, southern Canadian Indian, Blackfoot Cree, that sort of thing, wearing a feathered headdress. And it fits right into the topography because it's a glaciation or glacial formation of glacial moraines, terminal and lateral moraines that have been laid down, I guess, about 11 to 12,000 years ago as the glaciers retreated, and then have been sculptured by water erosion. However, if you think water sculpted this, maybe you're right, but features that say that something else has had a hand in it. It just looks too much like an Indian, and it's I shouldn't say Indian, I should say First Nations. And this particular profile runs north-south. Just below, I had added the image that shows the lines of latitude and longitude, so you can see the north-south lines of longitude run right through the headdress and down through the back of the face and the neck.
Right, as well as coordinates on there, I believe.
Yeah, that kind of tells you where it is. It's about 30 kilometers or so east of the city of Medicine Hat, which is also a little bit of a coincidence if you think that this is a natural formation, because this Indian wears a medicine headdress, or at least one very similar to a
medicine man.
A medicine man headdress, yeah. And
right up there with BC Bud, I know what medicine he's providing. It helps everybody.
Well, I'm sure that they would have used similar medicines in their time, but this particular formation, of course, mainstream say, yeah, it's a natural formation, but that's what they were saying about our cliffs on Mars as well. But when you combine so-called natural geoglyphs and you come up with all kinds, all in the same area, all with the same symbolism, all using the same motif, and all relating to the art and mythology of Mesoamerica, you start to go well beyond the factor of chance. So there's some other hand. And what I think a lot of researchers have a problem, and I'm talking mainstream researchers, is getting over the idea that we're human beings on this planet are the top of the echelon, the top of the the list. You know, we have nothing else to compare it to, and as far as animals on this planet, we are at the top.
Right, or the best that's ever been, or out there. Yeah, right. Stereotypical, you know, head in the sand type of thinking, especially when, pun intended, with all these evidences and potentials thereof, demands exploration. Now, if I may ask, how big is, because now what we're looking at, people, here is like a side profile view of what appears to be a Native American head. Almost you could picture it on a gold coin or something, type of look. The traditional North American indigenous type of nose and brow line, mouth, jawline, possibly even where the eye would be. How big is just this face? Have you found
his face from the top of the forehead to the bottom of the chin is about 225 meters. So
what would that be wise? American?
That would be, let's see, well, it would be about 300 yards, 250 yards.
Okay, so just a little over two and a half football fields.
I'm trying to remember. Hang on, no, a yard is, something like that. I think a yard is 3 inches shorter than a meter. So it's been a long time since I've used imperial units. So, if you're
3 foot.
Yeah, so if you're looking at this, the people are looking on screen. There's a neck and a neckline, like he's wearing a buckskin jersey of some kind with a kind of a V-neck to it. And if you go down to the base of that neckline, up to the top of the feathers, you're looking at about a half a mile.
Okay, all right, gotcha.
A little bit. Yeah, somewhere around there, about a half a mile. So the face itself is only a part of the whole image. You have shoulders.
What's the structure sitting in that line? Is that a building? Because where it's positioned, it's very interesting because it runs actually to the back of the jawline where the jaw ridge would come up, where it would meet the ear almost. You know what I mean? Or the side of the headdress. You know what that is?
Yeah, it's a gas facility. They're producing natural gas. There's there's a lease road that runs up from the highway. You can see it looks like he's wearing an iPod with headphones. That's it's kind of comical. But yeah, it's a very sensitive area. It's a very arid area, so it's short grass and it's easily disturbed. So there's not a lot of activity goes on there. So when they building leases for drilling, they try to minimize the impact. So that's a building there that is there's a gas production facility there and a lease road coming up. So yeah, coincidentally, it's right in his ear.
That's indeed. Very, very interesting, this thing, where it was placed. That's why I'm wondering, all right, and also how high, like the brow and the noses, because how it's so pronounced. How high is that? Is that only a couple feet up? We could easily walk up it, or is it more, more deeper than that? Or
I haven't done any analysis on that. I've been through that area a lot of times, but I'm guessing you're probably looking at something like 50 to 100 feet at the most.
Okay. All right. That's interesting. It is interesting to look at, everyone. Again, on the facesofmars.com, just scroll on down to see William's first set of images. They're the ones dealing with Earth tonight, and the other ones for George HAAS. And if and when we get him on the phone in about 45 minutes, I hope. Hopefully he's up and waiting and following along. But that is because look at that, a side profile of a face. And then also the headdress he has on kind of looks like certain artifacts that have been found depicting, I guess, indigenous beings not with the traditional huge headdresses like the, but it's a smaller headdress with those feathers. I forget there's a technical name for it. Maybe it is a medicine hat, but it's not like a chief type headdress.
No, and the natives wore different headdresses depending on what your position was within the tribe, and
the way it looks too. I don't know if you noticed this, Bill, but it kind of looks like the side profile of one of those Egyptian elongated head motifs. Because if you follow that headdress, that line, as it was, follows like a conical type of head, like we see on Egyptian hieroglyphics on walls. You know, with the skulls.
I know what you're saying, and I think that I'm trying to do some more analysis of this image because I've only been studying it for a short period of time, but it almost looks like there's another face there in that conical part that you're referring to. It almost looks like there's a small face embedded in there, which is something that is very common in Mesoamerican, particularly the Maya.
Looks like a split face, if that's the one you're talking about.
Yeah, it could be. It could be from this angle. But I know what you're saying in terms of if you separate the back feathers from the front, from the conical. Yeah, I can see that connection that you're seeing as well.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Again, you know, until more data could come in on this, you know, we're freely speculating on this show. But this is more than just interesting speculation, people, because seriously, it looks like it should be on a damn gold coin, all right?
Yeah, exactly. And I should say that this formation was actually noted about 12 years ago by a lady by the name of Lynn Hickox. She was just perusing Google Earth looking for the dinosaur museum, which is to the north of this ways in Drumheller, and she stumbled across this, and I guess you know it's hard to see at first, but once you see it, you say, "Oh yeah, wow, that is something."
All right, now, and I remember I know I seen this before back then as well, but I seen larger views of the area from at least from what I remember. There was no immediate pronouncements, but then again, my memory, I didn't study it that much, so my memory might be failing me there. But have you seen the surrounding areas of this and what also may be suspect of being part of this ancient artistically carved wonder?
You mean, are there other carvings? Or
nearby or in this vicinity, or connected the features that connect to this thing overall, because we're only seeing a sliver of an area.
Yeah, I should have provided a context, I suppose, because as I said, the area that this is a part of all looks very similar in terms of being extremely eroded little coulees or gullies, and but you don't see faces. There is one other face actually to the northwest of here that also has a very native look to it, and a headdress that George has demonstrated in a couple of comparisons of, again, a Mesoamerican Maya type of headdress. So that's very, very interesting as well. But yeah, context image, I should have thought of that and placed it up there. But this is one of a number of these areas where there were glacial fingers came down and carved out the bedrock and brought along rocks and sands and silts and clays, and then as the glaciers retreated, they melted and left these basins of flat surfaces surrounded by the moraine of the glacial till, the rocks and sand and whatnot. It's a very interesting area, and it's called the Badlands for a reason, because it's very arid and not a lot grows there. It can be irrigated. There is some irrigation in the area, but it's mostly cattle ranching, that sort of thing.
Okay. Now, also, that being the case, whoever did this, if it was happened upon after the fact or before the fact, for all we know, and the glacial retrieval just, made it look all the worse, for all we know, right? At least we're speculating. So, but regardless of that fact, one would need an above view to help sculpt it.
Yeah, that's right. And
meaning they had to have been either really, 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 really big ladder, which I think we could discount, or flight.
Yeah, and this is the thing that works both for and against the artificiality. Is
like
that
the Nazca phenomenon, right?
Yeah. It's like somebody made this, but they could have made it like the natives of that
just
area.
From a view.
Yeah, couldn't have made it themselves. And if they had that ability, you'd see a lot more of them. They would have been doing a lot of it, but you don't see a lot of it. It would be somebody who had to have an aerial perspective in order to do the measurements and the proportions and everything else, and to appreciate it. I mean, why would you do it if you couldn't appreciate it?
Right. It was meant to be seen from above,
Exactly.
being this big, and so that's the thing. It would be too intricate. That's what I'm saying. The way this is, I should do a line drawing of this for you, and one of these days, and I'll send it to you, Will, and of what I'm seeing in this, and what I've noticed over the years. But I just, I never really cared to follow up. I was always iffy on this. But then again, that's because I just didn't pursue it enough, just because of the surrounding area at the time. And I got to admit, at the time, it wasn't such a great area image. Hopefully, by the way this looks, it looks like they've improved with taking other images on Google Earth over the years. So this one has a little more detail. I can swear I can see where the eyebrow is, where the eye is. It looks Egyptian-esque, but yet at the same time, yeah, that Egyptian, that head, I can't get it out. I can't get it out of me. It looks Akhenaten-ish. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. When your brain kind of processes something that you're looking at, it's hard to override that.
That's what they love to say to that. Like that term instantly is meant to demean and debunk. When in fact, no, not really. That might be a concept, fine, but that don't mean that what we're looking at is not in fact a carved face. You know what I'm saying? Washington Monument, it's not a trick of light and shadow, And what is that one that's being carved into a mountain somewhere now? A Crazy Horse, I think. Is it Crazy Horse?
I'm not sure. I don't think this was actually carved. I think that this is just built out of the material that was there, but it wouldn't be carvable rock. It's unconsolidated.
It would have to be it would have to be mosaically placed and created like what we do with mosaics and different colors of different stones, and we'd have to fit it all into place to make the overall image.
And that's what we're seeing on Mars, the same type of production. They're not carved. They're more like mosaics. And
how do we know these aren't carved though? We're at a great height. We're at a pretty big height.
Well, yeah. I mean, you can zoom in on Google Earth. You can zoom in a little closer than this just gives you the best perspective. Like, for instance, the eye is actually it looks like a closed eye, but it's actually a little cliff face there.
Oh, okay.
that forms the eye. And now, who's to say that, I mean, if you were to do an archaeological dig on this and come down,
Well, you
that
don't sound
perhaps
totally.
perhaps there's a formation underneath that has just been covered with debris, right? But yeah, so I would be very suspect in thinking that it would be a carved feature.
Right. Well, definitely boots on the ground research. Have you, obviously you haven't ran across others that might have been at, to do ground site detections or anything of this feature?
Not yet, no.
Besides the oil riggers up there?
Yeah, as I said, it's a delicate landscape, so there's not a lot of, some of it is protected in terms of who can access for letting their cattle graze and that sort of thing, because you disturb the surface and it stays disturbed. It has a very hard time coming back because it is so dry and windy.
I see. So then you might not be too married to this then.
Well, I'm actually maybe doing some research next month there.
Oh, really?
Yeah. There's some other people want me to have a look at this and are willing to possibly send me there. So.
Tell us about it. Who's got the balls to finally do that?
Ancient Aliens.
It's had more than a decade. I mean, it's been 10 years, more than 10 years. Oh, Ancient Aliens.
Right, yeah.
Oh, that's cool. So they're going to take you there. They're going to love the place.
Yeah, it's a concept they're working on at the moment. They've been in touch with myself and just some preliminaries. But yeah, they want to do a look at it. So they're doing some of the footwork as we speak. So.
Oh, excellent. Well, that'll be good to know. And, study around there, too. And so they'll be flying you possibly in a plane above this.
Helicopter, probably.
Huh. Ancient Aliens, again. There's no evidence that it's alien, no. Even though if it's Akhenaten-ish or Conehead-ish, doesn't mean it was in a previous epoch of previous civilizations here. Remember, there's many different breeds we've dug up that they all like to say we originally came from a monkey in a tail or an amoeba, a fish crawling out, and then, again, Darwinian evolution, when the fact is there's many different species of every different kind. Granted, aliens can indeed play a part because we could do the same thing as we go upon other worlds. It's not far-fetched, but there's nothing etched in stone, no pun intended, of whether if this is ancient aliens or ancient humans or ancient Martians. Again, the glyph scenario cannot be overlooked between both worlds. That helps us to be able to see this stuff all the more easily. Than just disbelief. We have the tendency to study these type of features more because of what we're already accustomed to. Am I explaining that in the right sense, sir?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Just another note on how this was constructed. It could have been, again, it would have to have been noticed from the air, but somebody could have said, well, that looks a lot like the people who live here. Let's just make it look a little bit more like them, and did some tweaking. It's hard to say.
You're very wary. I hope that happens for you, Will, and that would be great. And then you could come back on the show and fill us all in on the amazing experiences. Hopefully, you'll be bringing video cameras and image and cameras as well to take pictures to share with us all on this amazing adventure.
Yeah, well, I hope it works out. Like I said, it was just preliminary. It is just a preliminary at the moment, and we'll see how things unfold in the next month or so.
Indeed. Could also been, again, like Mean Green states, this could have been there since before the Great Flood. That could have had some happenstance and work at this also to help change the shape of what it was and or is. A lot of destruction upon the earth, upheavals of the technology of what these beings had here on the earth and us. It seems there was more than one breed walking around, and obviously then we weren't the greatest as well. You know, if we go according to that, and hopefully in a future show I'll have Pastor Joseph S. Terrell to help come on that show, and maybe also save some of you for King Holy Be Jesus, because he's not an ordinary preacher, and it gets in the realms of where this show does need to go, and it does have to be included, the scriptural aspects of, and especially where he comes from, based on scripture itself. And I've had others on the show, John Enoch and others, that would talk about this pre-Adamite civilizations, you know, that may also be, you know, for all we know, Satan's kingdom, and the things that happened here before man itself was physically created genetically, ancient aliens or whatever breed was on this earth. All these are questions that need to be answered. And to be honest, Bill, any concept I'd be fascinated with, you know what I mean? Because they all seem impossible, you know, right? I mean, at first glance, you know, and what we're taught. So I think anything that helps us think out of the box and to contemplate the possibilities of who we are, or who we could be, or discover again.
Well, the more we learn about our past, the more we realize that you know, it's not quite unfolding, or it didn't quite unfold like we were told. You have the two different major concepts of the biblical religious groups, and then you have the science aspect, and neither one of them seem to be working out as to a lot of stuff that we're finding. So yeah, it's interesting to look at all these different possible scenarios other than what we've been told through the years.
Indeed, because again, we're finding things, and Google appreciates that because it helps them to cover it up in many instances, especially like star forts or pyramids, or, you know, even the features in the oceans that is a dead giveaway of some form of highly advanced civilizations. You know, you look for them through their geometries and their roads, their buildings, but it seems so immense, so huge. That were they giants? Well, that's possible, but if you have air technology and therefore I would say also space capabilities, it wouldn't be far-fetched to be able to design and modify, you know, planetary landscapes for whatever means necessary, according to whatever they were designing. Because during the flood, wow, things, you know, and upheavals that have happened, you know, the land could have overturned as, you know, oceans cover up vast amounts, like I just said, under the oceans. We can see clearly that's not natural patterning. It looks like a city grid, but on a massive, massive size and scale. And there's no way that nature does that. You know what I mean? And it would be just a real wonder to be able to dig all that up, even under the oceans. That would obviously, I think, maybe lead to many of the features that are still buried or that are partially showing, or that we could help expose, that would reveal its previous existence, which has literally been under our feet for, well, since we were born, no pun intended, or pun intended. But it is a fascinating thing. So, again, Will, hopefully that goes good. But if it goes, please take all the data that you can for us, for your own research, and to share with us beyond what Ancient Aliens will want to have debuted. Because,
yes,
you know,
sure.
They put their own spin on it. We want your input on it to also help steer our decision-making process.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. Yeah, definitely. The producers will want to produce it the way they want, and
all right.
But yeah, I'll have my own ideas, I'm sure. And if you want to continue on the same line, and people want to scroll down, I'll show you another. I wouldn't call it it's not exactly the same as what we were just looking at, in that it's an island, and it's right at the corner, southwestern corner of Spain, on the edge of the end of the Strait of Gibraltar on the north side. There's an island called Isla de las Palmas, Palomas, I'm sure, and it's right. Of course, people may know that, or are probably aware that the Strait of Gibraltar was where the Pillars of Hercules were located, and people automatically have said over the years that Gibraltar is one of the pyramids. They don't know where the pillars. There's debate on to where the other pillar is. They're assuming it's on the African side, across the Strait of Gibraltar. But there's this island right at the end of the strait that has a profiled face on the side of it. And one could say, well, yeah, the ocean, tends to do that. It carves little inlets and stuff, and could carve something that looks like a face. However, this also has an eye and an eyeball that are perfectly placed. And I think that the odds of that happening are very low, that it would happen naturally. It looks to me like it was definitely produced as a face. Perhaps the face was carved somewhat naturally, but somebody from the air said, okay, well, we'll just make it a face, and created the eye. The other thing is, this is just like the Badlands Guardian. This runs north-south, perfectly north-south.
Okay. Now also, but unlike the Badlands Guardian, this one would most likely need to be carved. This is whatever type of rock, obviously, that all is. It wouldn't be as maneuverable as that the Badlands face as it was.
Yeah, I believe this is probably basalt. I'll have to double check. It's either basalt or limestone. But yeah, it would have to be carved to some extent. It has been basically 200 years that this has been connected through a causeway to the mainland, and it's had a lot of activity. It was a military base at one time. It's kind of been, it's a park now, a national park, but there's really nothing developed. There's a lot of old buildings and some newer buildings, but it's basically
and who knows what they all destroyed on the surface of this big island that was.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like there's been some rock collapse just above the head, but that could be intentional design. And if you scroll down, you can see where I've showed where the eye is, and then just below that there's a Greek coin with the profile of Hercules.
All right, before we get to the coin now, let's look at that one that says the eye. On the facesofmars.com, everyone. Hopefully you're all with us. Did you draw that eye and put the yellow pupil in there?
I highlighted what is there. The black lines are a gully that run right where you see those black lines are, and the yellow color just is colored in to show like an iris, but the edges of it are right where a circular
the edges of
ridge.
Yes, I see a circular feature going around the edge of the yellow, if that's what you're talking about. That would represent the pupil.
So what you see highlighted is actually there. I just highlighted it to bring it out.
Look at those features, though, coming out from where the corner of the eye is, just to the right of it. What it's like the pathways going into, I don't know what the hell that is, if those are openings or what.
Yeah, well, there's buildings there. Some of it is caused by the darkness, caused by shadow, but there's, like I said, it was a military base for many years, and so there's I've never been there, but I'm just reading on it. There's a combination of old and new buildings, rundown buildings, that sort of thing.
Well, that would be interesting to see how far back buildings were being found on there. You know what I mean? Compared, you know, what old findings were before military and all that started building their crap on it. And who knows doing what to the top of this island for whatever they have shown originally. You know what I mean? That would have been really interesting. It looks like it potentially could have had something there, but yeah, a lot of that, like you said, yeah, it's been lived upon and modified and reinforced, maybe in some degrees over time, and you know, it does look interesting. I mean, I do admit, and from the far out view, yeah, it kind of looks like it could be a profile of a Viking face or something, you know, or the other term, or Grecian or Macedonian type look. Is that right?
Yeah, it certainly would have undergone a lot of erosion over the years. If
right.
You're talking, you want to go back to the days of Hercules, but there's looking at this closely. If you compare it to the Greek coin, there's some very interesting similarities. If you look at that mustache coming down in the Greek coin, there's actually a similar shaped feature on the island face. The same shape.
Right, that's what helped make me see this as like he looks more Norse in that sense. But right, like a beard, mustache beard type, and the corner of his beard, the bottom of his beard, you could see there as if, you know, if that actually is what it is, it does kind of look like that. You know, obviously it's seen better days if it is.
Yeah.
The
eye, you can see the eye. That's not. You can actually even see that black pupil like thing there. So the eye is there, and then the shape. If you look at the image on the right, the shape of the island comes down to a point at the bottom, and so does the lion headdress that Hercules is wearing in the Greek coin comes down to a point. So the whole shape there is very, very similar to that coin, and one really has to wonder what this island looked like 1,000 years ago or 2,000 years ago.
And this coin is indigenous of that area as well, or is it just an example?
This is just a Greek coin of Hercules. It's
gotcha.
Hercules is the image on a Greek coin. I don't know. It's probably 3,000 years old or something like that. I don't know for sure, but it's definitely from the heydays of Greece.
Wow, that is wild. You know, and the size of this island, what's the scale of it? It's got to be at least a couple miles wide.
Well, the face itself again is similar in size to the Badlands Guardian. It's 200 meters.
Like you said.
Yeah, from the forehead to the chin.
Right.
Yeah, and again, north-south alignment.
Yeah.
So that would make this 2, 4, 5. Again, this island would be about half a kilometer, so a little less than half a mile from top to bottom.
All right. And once again, you need to be up in the damn air.
Exactly. Yeah.
Notice how it keeps coming back down to, that would put us in the air or in space, but at least, in this regard, definitely in the Earth's atmosphere, who knows how many hundreds or a couple thousand feet above this thing, how it would look. And that's really interesting in itself.
It's surprising to me with all the air traffic that would have passed over this island over the last 100 years, especially, military planes and passenger planes and helicopters and everything else, that nobody has noticed us because the eye jumps out at you and it makes the face, right? But that's the thing, people are, if you're not looking for it, you don't find it. So I was looking for things. I wasn't looking particularly for anything on this island. But that's the way you seem to find things, is when you're not looking for them.
Well, yes and no. It depends how persistent a looker you are. Someone told me that the faces of Mars didn't exist. But I haven't found the ones I'm looking for. But I have found some. So therefore, we had to go looking. But we're anomaly hunters. We're looking for all this type of shit. So when we see it, we see it. And compared to someone else that's not like us or attuned to the work that we do, they would just keep zooming by like it was nothing. And like you said, because they're not looking for it, they don't care.
True enough.
Until it hits them in the face, pun intended. So, but I think it's fascinating because now, in your opinion, this could all possibly be pre-Adamite, pre-flood, as well as after, correct?
Yeah, I would think so. I'd like to get down in the ground and have a real good look at that eye and see how weathered it is, the design of it, the structure of it, how eroded it is, to get a better idea of how old it might be. Would be pretty cool. The other thing is the whole headdress, the lion headdress. I don't know if you could do an archaeological dig in this area or not that would uncover anything, but that would be cool too.
Yeah, I'm betting there would be features there that remain. Maybe LiDAR might help, but then that would also help, show whatever they have done to it as well.
So this area of Spain, the Strait of Gibraltar, is supposedly the furthest west that Hercules went in his travels. There's arguments as to the exact location that of his furthest western expedition, but of course then a lot of people think Hercules wasn't real anyway, so that's a moot point to many people. But
I don't know. Great man
legend
of renown, like Scripture state, and half God, half man, and we know, at least from the Sitchin fans out there, it's very, very possible that Hercules indeed was real.
Oh yeah,
half breeds.
Yeah, the Titans. They were the sons of God and the offspring of the sons of God and the daughters of Earth.
Yep, those poor ladies. But then again, some of them might have liked it, the horse. But you never know, because that's the beauty of it. All playing aside, it raises so many questions and implications, and it helps us to be able to tune in and to deal with what we're seeing on Mars, in my opinion. But that's all the more reason why I'm glad I don't know if you've been following Dr. Mark Carlotto's work. He came out with a book called Before Atlantis. His Mars work helped him actually continue on a different line of research, which in my opinion, like I told him, I believe it's connected. I really do. And that would make most sense because, you have real scientists, looking at things and contemplating things over the years, walking conservatively and, on a tightrope. Whereas, people, like me, say, oh, hell no, that's a damn face, or, or that's a pyramid, or that's an artscape. No doubt about it. No conservatism at all. They're just straight in your face because that's what a lot of those features show. Now, if we were to take a lot of the water again from Earth, and that would help uncover a lot of, especially over time with winds and everything, blowing the old sands of the ocean, on the bottom of the oceans away, that would reveal a lot of these things like I was talking about that we get to see in Google Earth and used to get to see in Google Earth, and someone's got to be seeing it all better. Again, just like the real Mars they now know is not the Mars we now know on Google Earth. But, it's getting better. The data is getting more high res. The data is coming out to us, and, they're just not officially saying very much about it, trying to keep it as Earth-like and as natural-like as possible in their toning. Well, like, think about this, Bill, like the face of Mars. How that after all these years, is it ironic they still call it officially the face of Mars, while officially always, you know, trying to tell us, well, but that's not what it is. Then why give it an official name? It's a face. For God's sakes, they can't even make up their mind whether it's a massive, a mesa, a mountain, you know, or, you know, a butte. I mean, what the hell is it? Make up their minds. So,
the structure formerly known as the face.
Yeah. Well, actually, it's not formed. They still keep calling it the face of Mars. Now,
You know, I was insinuating that's what they could call it, you know, Prince-esque.
Oh, exactly. So therefore, when Vice President Mike Pence, who's now the chairman of the National Space Council, said that we're going to, you know, put American boots on the face of Mars, everyone was clapping, but they were all crickets. They didn't know what the hell he was saying because they would have been asking questions. You get where I'm going, right?
Right.
So, I mean, therefore, it's like the vice president just officially told us we're going to put American boots, meaning our soldiers with M60s, on the face of Mars. You know, it's like, whoa. But yet, if someone asked them, oh, of course I didn't mean that, you know. I just happened to say that. I just happened to say things. Just like Trump. We may have a Space Force. We'll develop another one. You know, I just happen to say things. You know, I mean, bullshit. I mean, they're trying to tell us without telling us, without being able to tell us. And it's very interesting how it's all done. Now, if you're seeing these type of features here on Earth and others, I like to know what NASA and the powers that be also really are knowing and maybe are ordering to help cover out on Google Earth. Someone's in control behind all this that wants things covered up. But I wonder what they have learned with their vast amount of resources and intellects involved on this that I'm sure are discussing even beyond the things we're talking about here. Have you ever thought about that?
Oh, yeah. I mean, there is another aspect to NASA, right? There's the military aspect, and I don't know how many people they employ, but it's, you know, it's certainly a group that would be doing research that we don't hear about. That's true. And again, that's why I make a plea to any of the older space workers. Hey, you want to come clean? I'll disguise your voice. You could call on in on this show, be a special guest appearance. If you have anything you like to say and or show or guide us to, or just get things off your chest because you know that we the people have a right to see this and know about this as well. And you're a real American and you don't feel comfortable maybe passing on the great knowledge that you have been able to find out down through time that many thousands of others could have only dreamed of finding out, let alone seeing or actually touching or going to. You know, so I definitely encourage that on this show. But on that note, Odin, are you out there? Or are you out there creating some hybrids?
Your creations are being seen, oh great one. Odin is here!
Were you able to ever get our next guest to join us on the line?
We will be ready in a few seconds. If
all right,
you want,
cool deal,
you can jump to a commercial.
This is a good time to take a break. Unless, William, you'd like to bring up anything else before we bring George in.
No, I think I've covered everything I was going to.
Okay, even though there's a lot more than you that meets the eye, my friend, so you don't have to be shy on this show. You know, we all want the truth, and we all need it because the Martian revelation's upon us. And what do you think about that, Will? I mean, you on many years ago. now down through time, you got to, I mean, do you see, because I got to say to everyone, they got to admit, this show is more relevant now than it has ever been.
Oh yeah, and I'm constantly amazed at some of the stuff I see that people are bringing forward, discoveries on the surface of Mars that the mainstream media just won't touch because they can't make fun of it. And there's more and more of it all the time, and I'm really excited about what's happening and what's coming in 2019.
Indeed, what a scary yet such a hopeful and optimistic and incredible potential of our future the crossroads we're at now, isn't it? Mm-hmm. But on that note, everybody, you know the motto on this show, pack 'em and smoke 'em, because you're still going to need them as we come back and bring in our guest, the co-host with William Saunders here, Mr. George J. HAAS of the SidoniaInstitute.com. Again, thefacesofmars.com. Check out his info, and we're going to go over his images and stuff. And George has been a very busy bee lately. A lot of things going on. So, you know, again, this work is culminating us into the future of where the Martian revelation is going to steer us all down through time. Again, pack 'em and smoke 'em. You're going to need 'em.
I'll be back.
Don't run. We are your friends.
Do you own a laser printer, copier, or a fax? Well then, listen close to this announcement. Laser Technologies has been providing high-quality, frustration-free toner cartridges that are guaranteed not to harm your equipment for over 20 years. Laser Technologies will save you on your supplies with high quality and fast delivery. Savings up to 50%. Laser Technologies supplies toner, imaging drums, developer and cartridges for most of the major brands. For a price quote, send an email to service@laser-technologies.com. Include your printer make and model for your part number. Call us at 561-792-9600. That's 561-792-9600. Laser Technologies, providing 100% of the quality at a fraction of the price. 561-792-9600.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
She's got the power of a child in her eyes. But when you find out
Yes, indeed, everybody. Welcome back. My name's Gary Lucia, the Mars Revealer, known also as the Mad Martian. And you're listening to the Martian Revelation that's upon you all now, being broadcast to you all through Global Radio Network. So, again, we're back with our guest, William Saunders, and we're also going to be bringing on our guest, I hope, George HAAS. But let me introduce George HAAS a little bit. Not going to go through the extensive bio. He's well known on this show and close friend of the Martian Revelation and myself for many years in this work and our peers. But George J. HAAS is a member of the Society for Planetary SETI Research and the founder of the premier investigator of the Mars Research Group, the Cydonia Institute. And George has also co-authored 2 books with geomorphologist William Saunders here, the Cydonia Codex and the Martian Codex. And it has produced 6 science papers that examine artificial structures on the surface of Mars that were published in various peer-reviewed science journals. And as I could hear, George is on with us. And I got to say, George, I'm still blown away by the fact these papers finally started to crack the doors and even kick open the look at it of the anomalous aspects to our work of which we have been doing all these years. Sure. Milestone?
Hello?
You didn't hear what I just said, did you?
You're breaking up with me too, Gary.
Yeah, you're breaking up, Gary. Gary, they're interfering with you already, Gary.
Are you serious? You telling me you don't hear me?
You're breaking up.
I don't see how. I'm going in good. In connection. Oh, it is.
Hey, Gary, I think it might be the headphones, brother.
It's not me.
It's clear now.
It's clear
but
now.
Still got a lot of static.
Yeah.
I can hear George perfectly, but you keep coming and going, Gary.
That's odd.
Well, now you're clear. Now you're clear.
And I hear Bill clearly, and your promo guy, I hear him.
Hey, William. Hey, George.
For me. Hello?
Yeah, we hear you, Gary. Just go on, Gary.
All right. George didn't hear me. But George, thanks for being joining with us. And I just want to reiterate the fact that the science papers that you published in scientific publications, hopefully you still hear me. What do you think? I know I ask you this all the time, but what do you think of that impact of them finally kicking the door open, allowing anomalies from Mars and Mars anomalies to put forth in these scientific papers? I mean, I'm still blown away by it. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, Bill and I are both members of the Society for Planetary SETI Research. And, you know, their members include Dr. Mark Carlotto and Dr. Brandenburg, Stanley McDaniel, and Dr. Crater, among others. Dr. Tom Van Franlin was a member. They've all had papers published in science journals.
But Stanley
McDaniel
ain't involved in this no more.
What's that, Gary?
Stanley McDaniel ain't involved in this no more.
Yeah, I understand that. But in the past, they've all had papers published. And there are science journals out there that, have published papers like that. And
right.
Bill and I had our first paper published in the Journal of Scientific Exploration back in, I think, 2011. So we've been doing this for a while. And, we do get these papers published. They're peer-reviewed. And a lot of times it takes us 2 or 3 years to actually get these papers written to begin with before we even try to find a publisher. And currently, there's this new journal that's been out for about 3 years now called the Journal of Space Exploration. Uh-huh. And they were originally started in, I think it was Japan. And some of the people from India. So it's a European publisher. and they're pretty open to doing different types of science investigations and things with biology and science and chemistry, and including space exploration. So that's one of the main publishers now that are open to this kind of research, which is great.
Yes, indeed. But still, it still blows me away because, again, like officially they call it the face of Mars, but we know their position. They don't know whether it's a mountain or a molehill, a mesa, a massive, whatever. And yet now they're including these type of subjects in the mainstream science format, but not going as far as the face. Or is that a yet there to that, George?
Well, if yourself, Gary, you've been involved in going through the NASA archives with the Mars Global Surveyor and the Themis camera and the new Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter. And, although over the years, NASA says they have no interest in the face on Mars and that it's a natural formation, they've taken probably about 25 pictures of that formation, something that, they're supposedly not interested in. They've been taking pictures of the face on Mars since 1976. Continuously.
That's right. And it still looks like a face every time.
Yeah, and every time, exactly. Every time they keep taking better pictures of it, we can see more of the features of the eye and the mouth and the head and, all of the features.
Now. Yep. Indeed. And it's coming in clearer and clearer, in my opinion. But anyway, there's something going on. Hey, George, are you on a landline or are you on us with Skype?
I'm on a landline.
All right, Odin, it's coming from your end, bro. Mean Green hears me good. I'm hearing static and a slight echo there for a second. Whatever connection that has that phone line's got to be the key. George, were you just hearing my voice crackle a moment ago?
You sound fine right now.
Yeah, you've been sounding fine for the past 6 minutes.
All right. Anyway, all right. So that's great, George. Now, do you think, again, like I said, do you think they're going to be leading up to where we could have our say in the scientific format regarding to the face of Mars? Or do you think that's still, hush hush and Looney Tune room, according to them?
I think the current journal that we're using to get these papers published, if you were to do a paper analyzing the data from the face on Mars, I'm sure it could get published. But somebody's got to write a paper, and Bill and I we've written 2 books and 6 science papers, and Bill and I have discussed possibly doing a paper on the face. But Dr. Carlotto has done a few papers that he had published, and I think he had the paper published in one of his own publishing houses that he did back in the early 2000s. So there's papers out there, but again, you get these papers published and they get ignored by the mainstream media.
Well, that's my point. So therefore, are you saying that if like me, I'm already writing a book on this crap, but about the face, if we and other collaborators, let's just say, write a paper, that they would push it, even though we're writing it of the face of Mars, of Cydonia, in that case, that they would do that, or would they put the kibosh on it? Like, they may be opening the door to some anomalies, but not the tamales we want.
Gary, I think if you were to put a paper together that was written, as a science paper, and submit it to the Journal of Space Exploration, I think the odds are pretty high that you'd get it published.
Wow, really?
Oh, I think so, yeah.
Well, I wouldn't want to do it by myself. I'd want it to be a collaborative effort based upon, all elements that would go under it, because I think because it's not just coming from one individual person or source or person to attribute it to try to continue the debunking factor of it, or, to take it to the realm of where it needs to go, in my opinion.
Well, you got to have some people, Gary. If you were to put a paper like that together, you'd have to have some co-authors that had credentials. You'd have to have a geologist or a space scientist to be one of the co-authors.
Right, like Dr. Brandenburg or Dr. Corlado or whatnot.
Exactly. So if you could find one of those, people on our side here from the Society for Planetary SETI Research or someone else, if you could find a geologist that knew about space imagery, then your chances would be great. But I like you're saying, just a average citizen like yourself, they like to have people that have some type of credentials.
Right.
Like when we have our papers, we have William Saunders and Michael Dale, who's also a geologist. So, and then we have Jim Miller, who's an image analyst from back in the 90s. So we have a lot of great people that we're using.
Yeah, Star Jim, indeed. Is Jim Wilhelmsen still alive and around?
Who's that? Excuse me.
Jim Wilhelmsen.
I don't know.
I know Dr. Horace Crater is no longer with us, but he was part of SPSR also. I had him on many years ago as well. I don't know what, he just came to mind. Man, sorry, Jimmy. Right. Not that you're a forgetful guy, but I forgot about you. So that's interesting. That would be interesting to note as well. But
and one of the other things with a lot of the members of the Society for Planetary SETI Research, they're getting up there in age. Dr. Mark Corlado's a young guy, but most of the founding members, like Dr. Brandenburg, they're all near 70 years old and older. So they're doing other things at this point. So
right, they're very important parts of the history of all this, and
they are.
And for where we're going and where it's going to go, if I have anything to do or say about it. The Martian revelation's upon us, and that's the reality, and we have to make our fate, George, and I thank you for supporting that vision.
Well, it's been a long, haul here. We've got a lot of history behind us. Like Bill and I, we've known you, Gary, since 1998.
Yes.
So we all have a lot of time in this.
Yeah, indeed. So all right. So hopefully you had a good holidays and everything. And I know you've been very busy, B. There's updates I wanted to get from you and whatnot before we get into the things you wanted to discuss and bring up forth tonight on this show. Excuse me, I almost burped. But anyway, so now what's going on? You were on Gaia recently, right? Can you tell us about that? Where you can tell the listeners where they can find that or how they should come across that. I don't have a link to it. I didn't get in touch with you in time to put a link on the webpage. Sorry about that.
Yeah, back in early in the year, I was invited by George Norrie from Coast to Coast, because I've been on there many times. Bill and I have been on there with our books, and George has had us on talking about some of these structures and things that we found on Mars. So we've known George Norrie for a long time, and he asked me if I would be interested in going out to Colorado, out there where you are, Gary. And I was out there for an episode to film an episode of Beyond Belief with George Norrie, and they just posted that on the Gaia Network. It's up. I think it was released. Interestingly, they put it up on December 26th of last year. So it was up recently, and it's available now on their stream, so you can stream the whole hour interview. And it went pretty well. It was very exciting to meet George Norrie for the first time, and went out there and did the show, and they flew me right back to Virginia. So it all happened pretty quick.
That's good. Did you get to show a lot of images and stuff, or how'd that work, or was it just straight interview?
Well, it's a sit-down interview. They have the big chairs. I don't know if anybody out there in the listening audience has seen any of the interviews on there. And it's just you and George. You're sitting face-to-face. And that's mostly the visuals, just the two of us talking. And then they will put up some images that you're talking about. So we spoke about 3 of the science papers that Bill and I have had published. We spoke about the the Parrot Formation on Mars. We spoke about the three-sided pyramid that we did a paper on, and we spoke about the keyhole formation. So those three images were put up. I think there's like maybe 6 or 9 opportunities for them to put up images of these formations. But it's kind of limited for the visuals, but they do put some pictures up while you're talking. So those were the 3 main formations we spoke about.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. And also, I believe, just to refresh my memory and everyone else's, it's still exciting. I'm excited for you. You also on Ancient Aliens, weren't you?
Yes. Last year was a great year, 2018. I was on an episode of Ancient Aliens. If the listeners out there go through the archives, it was the Desert Code episode, and they talk about a lot of geoglyphs on Earth and how they're related to one another, and they speculate about who built these formations. And they featured the Parrot Formation that we had discovered way back in the early 2000s with our old friend Will Faust, who found that. Will was actually the one that discovered the Parrot on Mars, the Parrot Formation, and he also found the three-sided pyramid that we eventually had a science paper done on. So that was a very interesting episode. I was on there. They flew me out to California, got up the next morning, filmed like 4 hours of filming for the episode. And if you watch the episode, I'm only on there for like 30 seconds. It's like a couple little bits where they have the people out there in the audience. I'm sure they're familiar with how the Ancient Alien program works. They have the narrator, and then they switch off to some of these specialists and people that they have talk about these formations and stuff. So that was my little segment, and then they flew me right back. So I was out there, filmed, and they shoot you right back home.
Well, this is definitely helping to get the Mars anomaly issues out there more, in my opinion. But just remember, George, stick to your guns. Don't go where other people want to say to lead us all to come to a conclusion that, may be much different than the conclusion some may want us to believe. And but I still give kudos to them for the effort of somebody, getting this out into the public, and it's definitely a good venue to address that on, in my opinion.
Well, when I spoke to George Noory, he did ask about you, so he knows you're out there, Gary, and he was thinking about having you on the show. I know I sent him all your information, but I guess he hasn't contacted you yet. But these things run pretty slow sometimes, so you never know. You might get that phone call.
Well, you never know. We just might get any phone call down through time. As a matter of fact, Daryl, I don't know. Do we still have the timeline engaged, or do we need to connect it through time?
The timeline number is area code 202-684-6955. That's 202-684-6955. Join us on the timeline.
Exactly, because you never know who or what may show up through time, and it's very important. You never know. So if anyone would like to call in, or even have a comment for George or a question for him and for Mr. Saunders as well, it would be great, because these two guys together have put out a lot and did a lot of work regards to the pictographic aspects of what people would call anomalies of Mars. I call the artscapes. As many of you listeners to this show know and appreciate what I stand on this, that Mars is an artistically covered entire planetary surface, but only in time is that going to become known as the giant sculpture that it really is, that was created by some unknown race of intelligent beings. And if it is what it appears to be, what does that have to do with Earth? Boy, many puns and great questions and possibilities come to mind in trying to answer that. But we will get there in time. I'm convinced of it. So anyway, George, indeed. So what have you guys been working on now? I think George, Bill said he's working on a book, but I think I could have, forgive me there, Bill, but I think, did he say that you two are also starting another book together?
Who, Bill and I?
Yes. Or did I misunderstand them in that regard?
Well, I think what happens is we come together every once in a while with a bunch of material and make a book out of it because there's so much material.
Oh, indeed. Literally, for years to come, the Martian revelation is going to be filled with material, seen and unseen, and that'll come to light because that's what this show's about and what my destiny is. But there's a question from Judith Neely. Could George or William please speak about the three-sided structures that they have discovered or have put the research out forth about? Because I think you said Will Faust discovered that, at least one of those ones.
Yeah, we had a paper published a couple of years ago on that three-sided pyramid that Will found back in the day, and like I said, those papers, they take us a while to put together, and we send material back and forth. And if the listeners out there want to go to the Sidonian Institute website, we have links to those papers there. That's
excellent.
At the SidonianInstitute.com.
Yes, I have it. Actually, it is linked under your information here above the Badlands Guardian face. I have a link for the Sidonia Institute. It'll bring you to the bulletin board subjects page.
Yeah, the paper was the three-sided pyramid formation there in the Candor area of Mars, and that was published back in 2017. So if that caller, just go over to the Sidonia Institute website. At the toolbar up at the top, just look for science papers, and we have the listings of all the papers that we've had published, and there's a link so you can have free access and just read a PDF version of the paper, which is right there available to the public.
Okay, and the title of that thread obviously is the three-sided pyramid, and that's in Valles Marineris system, everybody. Again, not a unlikely place for that to be something like that to be found. Now, Angel on Facebook has a question. She asked, "What is the most dynamic find that either of you guests have discovered on Mars? And do you believe that the Nazca lines of South America were done by the same ETs that created the imagery on Mars?" Well, you see, pretty much people are making those connections. You would have to. It's only a planet away, not a billion light years away.
Yeah, well, I guess I'll go first. My favorite is the keyhole formation. I think that's probably the most dramatic. When people look at that, they immediately think it was built by someone. They think artificiality. So that's probably my favorite. What about you, Bill?
City Center Pyramid is what Richard Hoagland called it, and we called it in our book. Sorry?
Oh, you mean City Square Pyramid of just west of the face of Sidonia?
Yes. Yeah, that structure has, we found four faces on it so far, four major faces that seem to all be interconnected in symbolism to the Maya god Kukulkan, or known as Quetzalcoatl to the Aztecs. And to me, that's my my favorite. And the image of the half image of Quetzalcoatl is pretty spectacular when it's mirrored. You have what looks like a spacecraft / bird, and the twin serpents, which was his symbolism. And then you have the water lily jaguar, you have the sun god, and you have another. I'm sorry, George, I forget what the image was of the with the fish head that you found.
Yeah, that was one of the other gods. We called him the Admiral.
Oh,
that was right. That was the sun god, the
So that was the
or
same.
whatever.
Yeah, that was the same. Same.
Yeah, that's on the same pyramid there with the four faces.
Yeah,
and
and
it's pretty amazing that when Bill found all this stuff, we had no idea that they were all connected like this through the Maya mythology. Which was, when we saw that, it was like, my God, all this stuff seemed to, like the face on Mars seemed to have Mesoamerican attributes, and this main pyramid there that Bill found with all these pictographs around it. That was a pretty amazing discovery.
So, if that being the case, Will, that of what you're seeing in your interpretation there of what you're saying, would you lead us to believe that Quetzalcoatl had a direct Mars impact and connection physically on the surface of Mars?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. And in regards to the lady's question, I would say yes. The ones who created the Nazca lines are the same people who, maybe not the same individuals, but the same species that created the glyphs on Mars.
Okay. Well, again, that connection abounds, especially with, again, your guys' previous work on iconography and split glyphs and stuff of that. I still find it to stay fascinating. I mean, because how would two worlds separated through space and time come up with similar motives, even showing of animalistic anthropomorphic features of animals that, at least in our lifetimes, we're familiar here with on Earth, rather than something extinct, and therefore it would look highly implicating, but we wouldn't be able to directly connect it to something if, like Bill said earlier, we won't see nothing if we're not looking for nothing, or how would we know, So, all right, so that's a very good implication, and that may very well be fitting, because Zechariah Sitchin had tied the Anunnaki to Quetzalcoatl and the building of the structures over there, as well as the Mars base and the way station that Mars was for the gold, as well as for the exiling of their own offspring, to which their ages would come for them to become lord and kings over this earth in their ages, where also battles ensued, which also connects to Dr. Brandenburg's nuclear war scenario. I don't know why, but Sitchin's work seems to be coming out somewhat accurately, prospectively correct, as a possibility and probability to some degree. But anyway, Ricky G on the Global Enlightenment Radio Network. This show is being heard. Sorry, tongue twisters. I'm going to have to get used to things. But hey, the Martian Revelation is here, and thanks to both of them for allowing that to be. And again, but have you considered the mid-ocean ridge of the Earth to be housing or holding of more of the secrets that have yet to be discovered? And if you think of it, that area may be the lowest point of sea level, but with the shifting of the tectonic plates, more mysteries can be solved by the information that is hidden down there in relation to ancient Earth and most possible Mars and Venus. Well, I'm sure, yeah, that's possible. What do you guys think?
Bill's been doing a lot of searching through the archives with Google and these radar images showing the bottom of the ocean floors and stuff, and he'd probably be more adept to answering that question than I would.
Yeah, I don't want to say too much at this point, because this is part of the book that I'm working on, and some of it's confidential information. But the bottom of the ocean does hold a lot of information and secrets. As far as the Mid-Atlantic Ridge, that's part of it, I would say. They use what the Earth has to work. they work with it, and we'll find more. I don't know how much Google. I don't actually know what instruments Google uses to image the bottom of the ocean. I've tried to find some information on it. If anybody out there can help me out, I'd appreciate it.
We'd have to probably pay good money to get real accurate views, if it could even be given out. My opinion, I don't know. But anyway, all right. So Tony,
well,
listen.
The data that's out there that the public can access, like Bill has looked at, there's some pretty amazing patterns and things that.
Well, yeah, but like I mentioned earlier, George, a lot of that Google has also been covering up over the years, and that's sad to say, especially around shorelines, even around northern Russia, northern Canada, and where a lot of these features could be seen running out also into the sea, and what appear to be patterns, what would have to be pyramids or something. But under the water, but it would, then Google would just cover it up with blue, or, like in Antarctica, they fill everything up with pure white. They don't want us seeing what's there, if there really is, for you flat earth freaks out there. But you never know. You never know. There's always truth in everything. So yeah, we could laugh. Years ago, we would have laughed about faces of Mars. It's not such a laughing matter anymore. These realities now, of which even you guys are putting out in scientific papers, thanks to the balls of tenured individuals, helping to allow that door to be kicked open, and it needs to continue to be done. But I forgot where I was going. I brain farted, but let me continue. Tony, listening from Spain on the Global Enlightenment Radio Network, asks, what does your guest think that the true reason why the Chinese, I have another word from him, listeners, this show can appreciate, and I mean the government, not the people. Anyway, what does your guest think the true reason why the Chinese sent a rover lander to the moon? The space race is on. That's why, but go ahead.
Well, I think you said it right there, Gary. That's the reason. NASA has taken all of these images of Mars, and they're finding structures up there, and we're finding these geoglyphs and evidence for ruins on the planet. And other countries are seeing this, and they're seeing what's on the moon. And the first step to go to Mars, China, they landed on the far side of the moon, and they're going to supposedly within the next 18 months, they want to put their Chinese boots on the face of the moon, and from there they're going to go to Mars. And this is what this is all about. A lot of countries want to go to the moon and then on to Mars. You have India, you have Russia, and of course the United States now, because we were in a dormant stage for 8 years in the last administration, and currently we're full
really longer than that
to go to Mars.
Right, but really longer than that, and then he balls out effort. Yeah. We've been counting on the Russians for their rocketry to help get us up there. While funding that instead of funding people with balls, Americans with balls like Elon Musk. And that, that's a shame itself. And hey, have you guys seen that rocket prototype? Wow.
It's amazing that he has this Flash Gordon type rocket that goes blast off, and then you can just land it the same rocket, just like we saw when we were kids watching these crazy old movies where they'd use these type of rockets. And Musk has done it. It's amazing.
Indeed. And, he's got balls. And believe it or not, NASA does not want to fund him. They don't want to help him. Like Dr. Brandenburg said, he basically works for the U.S. government now. NASA is jealous. They're worried. They want to continue on with this turtleneck pace speed where they think they're going to be continuance in control of we the people's Space Force. See, that's what it is, because a lot of their funding is going to go bye-bye to what they tried to establish and de-establish to help other global nations get there on our dime and our tech. And then what? Well, we wouldn't have our own space program no more. They would have been bought out by the Chinese and everyone else that they've been globalizing to. instead of focusing on we the people. So that isn't a surprise that they have to bitch about, Elon Musk. Look at what he's doing for our nation, for himself, having the balls to do, bitching about him smoking a doobie. Ain't that something? Pack them and smoke them, because you're getting into especially what we're going to find when we go up there. Ain't that right, George and Bill?
Yeah.
Well, I think having Musk do this, I think we're going to have access to whatever they find. They can't hide it anymore, Gary.
Well, right, especially if we're going to put American boots on the face of Mars. There's got to be some disclosures coming first before these boots are put there. Like Dr. Brandenburg said on the show months ago, that he made a prediction that President Trump, within 3 years, will come out and acknowledge that the discovery of a dead civilization on Mars. And that wouldn't be far-fetched, considering, Dana Rohrabacher, remember that escapade, guys, where he came out about asking Congress or whatnot about, hey, I've been talking to some people about, about that they discovered, a Martian civilization on, a dead civilization on Mars. Was it a dead civilization? But either way, a civilization on Mars thousands of years old. And what they scolded him about now is millions of years old. And there's no life there.
the media made fun of him. But, this is what happens when people come out and want to ask the hard questions.
But that was a disclosure, like the president's words based on Brookings, coding it to us, even outright telling us what's going to happen. They are the presidents. One says we're going to put American boots on the face of Mars. The other one says we may have a space force. Ta-da! We'll develop another one. Wow! And then telling General Dunford after he's signing it in Congress, hey, now good luck, General. Now go get it. Go get what? The space race is on, and the Chinese know it, and that's what they're trying to go there to get. That's my.
Their first step, like I said, is to go to the moon, and then they're going to go to Mars. And if they get there, they're going to own it. So.
Indeed. And now, look, the type of things that they want to get to own. Let's get to your images now, and everyone at www.thefacesofmars.com. All right, and under the Hercules picture there of the island, George, take it away. What are we looking
Gary,
for?
Thanks for having me on to talk about this stuff, Gary.
Yes, sir.
If everybody out there listening is on Gary's thefacesofmars.com, below the Hercules coin image that Bill had up, there's a image of a rectangular formation on the left side, and then there's another rectangular formation on the right side. The one on the right is an aerial view of some ruins out in Arizona of brick foundation. And we're seeing basically the same thing that remains on Mars here. Now, this whole area, this is the Acheron area of Mars, which is located right above the northwest of Olympus Mounds. And it's basically parallel, the same northern latitude there, which parallels with the utopian facial formations that Dr. Brandenburg talks about. And then, of course, you have Cydonia, and you follow, if you all have your map of Mars at home, you got Utopia on the eastern side, and directly across in the center you got Cydonia, where all the structures are there. And this Acheron complex that I'm calling it is located parallel right on the western side. So right across the top, you have like all the main areas where all of these civilizations probably were. And this area was investigated by Greg Orm, who's a member of the Society for Planetary Study Research. He's one of our colleagues.
As well as previous guests to this show.
What's that?
As well as previous guests to this show, and he will be on again. But go ahead, sir. Sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah, I spoke to Greg. He wants to come on and talk about this area again. So I'm just highlighting everything we're seeing here. This is all stuff that Greg found. He had a book put out with some of these images in it, and he also had a science paper published about this in the Journal of Space Exploration, that journal we were talking about that's very friendly to this kind of research. And the paper was called Room-Like Shapes with Freestanding Walls, and he talks about all of these structures in this area and other areas on Mars. But this is a very interesting area. We have two strips that the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter has taken, two really nice strips of this area that show this whole complex. And these digital strips of these surface features are just amazing. I think you've been looking at them too, Gary. There's structures all over the place in this very small area. Mm-hmm. And this is one of those formations which looks like the ruins of a foundation. Greg called it a rectangular hollow because it seems that the structure, there might have been a roof on it that's just collapsed inside. And what we're seeing is just the support foundation, the infrastructure of
it's very
geometrical.
It's very geometrical, box-like. It's like, just looking at it, you would think, oh, come on, you're pulling my ass. There's no way this is on Mars type of thing. And yes, it is. But George, did you ever find out the dimensions in comparison to that Adobe ruin from Arizona? What?
The ruin in Arizona, that's pretty small. That's probably the size of a small house.
Right.
The one on Mars, we haven't got the data in for the size of that yet. Jim Miller's working on all that. But you can see the left, it's basically a very symmetrical rectangular shape. The top kind of arches over. And I think that kind of arches over because if you look at the shadow, that's probably a higher wall of the remains there. And then it's the other left, or the right side where it's very lit up. It's very bright. That's probably a lower wall. What are your thoughts, Bill, about any kind of geological explanation that would form something like this?
Yeah, I don't know of any geological explanation that would form something so symmetrical in a location like that. I mean, there's no evidence of water flowing in. There's no evidence. Of course, a crater wouldn't make a rectangle. An impact object wouldn't make a rectangle unless it was rectangular and came straight down.
Right, like the footprint, imprint.
Yeah, and then you'd see remnants of it. But I don't know of anything. There's also, it looks like there's two levels of wall. If you look in them in the upper left-hand corner, it looks like there's a lower interior wall and possibly a lower exterior wall around the central ridge.
Yes.
And it also looks, the bottom left, it also looks like there's a small rectangle in there, or a small square wall in there. Fireplace, maybe?
Well, it's definitely more built up than the other side appears to be at the moment, right? That's for sure. All right.
But
so
Gary, maybe Pence wants to put some boots on the face of this foundation here too. We could check this out, get out there and start doing some digging.
I don't know. Yeah, I agree, but I think for what he said, there's a lot more needs to get him inside the face as fast as possible. And it makes you wonder.
That's where the archives are.
Well, it makes you think of the experience from the gentleman in the Kirby comic, and the movie The Mission to Mars, and literally God only knows what else. But obviously they know something. They want to put American boots there. All right, so let's go to the next image, guys. On the facesofmars.com. If you click on that image also, that'll take you to the actual thread topic and messages for this area as well. So all you people.
Do you have Gary? Do you have a hot link on the image to go over to the Cydonia Institute discussion board?
Yes, right to the actual topic where these images are.
Oh, very nice. Well, I encourage all the listeners out there to start clicking, and there's amazing stuff over there. This is another formation that Greg found. This, he believes, shows evidence that part of this roof has just peeled off and went to the left. If you look at the diagram that he has in there, showing the shape of the roof that has like slid over, and the corner there that's marked the letter E, you can see all of the texture in there showing grid work and infrastructure and all this cellular formation in there that was revealed after this roof kind of just slid over.
Indeed, it does look like I used to paint and draw and a lot of graffiti on trains, walls, and roads, everybody, once I got to Florida. And you could actually do it on roads. But I used to paint ribbons and stuff like that and scrolls. And that's what this roof being peeled back kind of looks like I would do as one of my art pieces, you know what I mean? So I saw immediately what he was trying to show there. And that is an amazing find, because look where, if you would visually in your mind try to fold it back, it looks like it would fit. The lines are there like to where it would have fitted. You know what I'm saying? That I find fascinating.
Yeah, in his paper, he goes into detail about showing how all this fits together in there. And interestingly, right below that formation, you have these two circular discs, which are pretty interesting, and these twin. They look like supposed to be craters, I guess, but they seem to be very, very raised. They don't seem to be a hole in the ground. They seem to be structural. They're up. What do you think about those, Bill?
Yeah, very curious. They both have looks like dual walls, inside and outside. Well, my first thought when I first looked at it that they were craters, and then I quickly realized that they weren't. They're
elevated.
Weren't depressions. They're elevated, and it's a puzzle. I mean, there's a lot of different geometric shapes, and you find that in a number of these Martian images, structures, what have you.
Now, Bill, the other thing interesting about these, that if these were craters, there'd be a debris field, but the area, the surface right around them just seems to be very flat.
Yeah, and the one close to the ripped back part there is there's no evidence of any damage to that. So if it was an impact, it would there would be
that corner would be blown right off, right?
Yeah, there would be evidence of that. So it's I don't know. I mean, water can make falling water can make circular impressions when you get rocks moving around in the water. However, it's a puzzle. Maybe they were wells.
Yeah, but notice the close proximity of the two. If it was a meteoric impact, whatever that is, it didn't affect the other one sitting next to it directly in a line next to it.
Yeah, and they're the same size.
It is interesting. Yeah, differently designed, but yes, the same size. That is incredible, and this feature do need further study. I wish we had a nice color imagery of these features. Again, because Mars, everybody, is not black and white.
Right. We've always wanted those color pictures, right, Gary?
Oh, indeed. The true color pictures. What's the true color? Now, all right, so now bring us to the one under that, as enormous and fanciful those rounded structures are. Tell us about what's underneath it, because we have FED, and we see it a little higher res, a little closer, and you can actually see the flap a little better and all the intricate detailings and fine linings. That looks exquisitely artful.
You're talking about the peeled off roof image?
Yes, right. But the larger under those two sub samples.
Yeah, there's two images of this, and I think Greg has them in this little poster here. At the top, the two on the top, there's one on the right that has a black area, a little triangle. That's because this was right on the edge of the strip, the first one that he found. But the second image on the left shows clearly those two spherical or circular mounds.
Structures.
And, right. So on our website, we have links to these two images. You can go. I encourage the public listeners out there, go look at these. Download the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter CTX image and just take a look at these, because you can zoom in and get to look at some of this textural area there that shows the cellular network on that upper right side.
Indeed. And also I noticed you did line tracings, which, you know, one could see, okay, if they were to look at it like that, that it's a representation of a cube, a 3D, well, yeah, I guess a 3D type cube.
Well, it's like a hexagonal form that Greg's just showing a little outline there, what it, the shape of it.
Okay. All right. Well, it can also...
Now,
a box.
This formation is in the same area that rectangular foundation is in. So there's stuff's all over the place here.
Right.
So if the viewers go down to the next image, underneath the peeled off roof poster, are you ready for that one, Gary?
Yes, sir.
The third image. This is another formation that Greg Orm found. And this is just right up above where that other rectangular foundation is. And he called this a sliced bread. It looks like a piece of bread there on the right. The image on the left, that's a foundation that was from the Bronze Age, going way back. It's just this archaeological dig that this is in Russia. Speaking of the Russians. So this is one of the older formations. There was an archaeological dig with some information on the internet that I found, and that's where this formation comes from. And it's pretty similar to what we're seeing on Mars with this slice of bread type of shape. It's got this horizontal bar that goes across the upper center, just like we're seeing in these ruins in Russia. Pretty amazing.
It is. Now, again, no. Just because it's side by side doesn't mean that's the same scale of size.
Oh no, the formation on Mars is it's bigger than the rectangular formation, and this piece here that I'm comparing it to, this foundation in Russia, that's probably the size of a large living room. So it's a small structure.
All right,
well,
gotcha.
what I'm doing here is just to show people that here's a ruin on Earth that we know is a structure that looks very similar to what we're seeing on Mars at a larger scale. But we have no problem knowing this is an archaeological artificial structure that we're finding on Earth. But on Mars, everybody's like, oh, that's on Mars. It can't be. There's nobody on Mars. Nobody was ever on Mars. This is natural. But I don't think nature makes things like we're seeing on Mars. Does nature make these things, Bill?
On Earth, let alone on Mars.
Sorry, I missed your
comment.
comment.
What's your thoughts, Bill, on this the slice of bread?
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. I was just actually looking at the all the intricacy at the very top there with a magnifying glass on the screen here, and it's looks like a circuit board. It's got all the and I see this a lot of places on Mars. It's just intricate little walls and mounds and walls just in a maze.
Like little, when you get into the details, it looks like little adobes. I mean, there's all these
little adobes and
are inside.
Yeah, and the surrounding. It looks from a distance. It looks like a corn maze.
Interesting. Yeah. So this is I think it's a very convincing example here of artificial structures in this area. The rectangular foundation in this, I mean, it just screams. And again, these are all in the same area. It's not like you're going all over the planet looking for examples. These anomalies are all in this one area of Acheron on Mars. So I'm calling this the Acheron complex.
The Acheron bread. It's time for ham and cheese. I'm getting hungry, packing this bowl and smoking it, looking at this thing, that slice of bread there. George, I'm looking at it closely. I see the art all over it. I could swear I'm seeing some type of motif.
I think you're getting hungry, Gary. You're looking at a slice of bread.
Yeah, definitely.
You got the munchies.
Yeah, definitely. But what I'm trying to say, though, because it helps ocularly. That's purpose for smoking.
there's a word. That's a word for you.
Yep, and I can swear this thing looks like a motive of some sort.
Huh.
You know, but I have to study that more. But it is real interesting. You can see the art all over it, the grid-like designing. That is not natural. That is not just happenstance. And that was a great representation to show of something artificial on Earth in a similar shape of being that's being excavated. Well, compare it to that thing, it definitely don't look natural. And I still swear I'm seeing a motive of some sort, or a symbol or something. I don't know why, guys. I just thought I'd throw that in there. Maybe the listeners can appreciate that or not, or just think I'm stoned, which I am. But it helps. I'm telling you.
It would be nice if we could get a close up of this, because this is a big long strip, and a higher resolution picture would be great. The other thing, if the viewers out there are looking at this, the shape of what Greg calls the slice of bread, that foundation is raised up. If some people look at it and they'll see it as an indentation, they think it's carved in the ground. That's actually raised up. So you got to get your eye to adjust to what you're looking at.
Right. But or you can invert it, through the program. That's helpful at times as well, because that could help make it more pronounced as it is. Mars is a very fantastic art carved place. And George, what was the term years ago when I told you, when I was describing this type of stuff to you, you said something, it was a special art term that coincided reflectance of what I was describing, how I see this. It had something to do with the light and the knowledge of the sun and knowing what to carve, how to carve it, and or what would be seen at different light angles. What you called it a certain name.
I don't remember, but I don't.
It wasn't abstract art. It was something though that's a term, and I forgot. But I just was hoping you'd remember, because listeners would appreciate it. So would I.
Yeah, I don't recall, Gary.
All right, well, it might come to you. Again, maybe when I find the subject we were talking about, the actual image, then you would know. It had to do with a face image, I think. But anyway, yeah, these are really remarkable. And again, true color imagery should help bring out the tattoo a lot more with these features. And I think that's what they know, and that's what they're seeing. And they don't really think that maybe we should see it like that just yet. But, the data is being put out there at least, and it is awakening us up. So anyway, I wish there was more images that was provided to talk about. But anyway, George, is anything else you would like to do? What do you got coming up? I know Bill mentioned that possibly in the works is, Ancient Aliens, that might actually fly him over that Guardian, Indian Guardian feature. But what about you, George?
Well, along with Bill, Ancient Aliens just contacted Bill and I last week. This is very recent. They're planning on doing some more shows about Mars, and they want to have Bill and I on. They want to do a show that's comparing Earth geoglyphs like the Badlands Guardian with the face on Mars, and they're interested in one of the papers that Bill and I did with the bearded profile figure that we found on Mars. And so they contacted Bill, and I guess they want to do a flyby over the Badlands Guardian and take Bill up in a helicopter and I guess have him comment about what they're looking at. So it's all in the works right now, nothing official. This is just in the planning stages. They just called me and Bill, and I think they gave Michael Dale a call. So they're in the process of putting the show together, and they also want to do another show about the keyhole formation that Ancient Aliens had mentioned. They showed the image of the formation on Mars on one of their other programs, but they want to do a more in-depth program on that. So we may be flying out to California soon to do a new show for Ancient Aliens, but we'll keep you updated. It's all in the preliminary works right now, Gary.
Right. Exactly. No problem there. Any conferences or anything coming up, or other things you're working on, or next books? And also, I got to someone. We just got a question from someone, but God, you could answer that first.
Yeah, I'm going to the Human Origins Conference, which is being held out in Arizona in March. I'll have more information on that for the listeners if they check out my Facebook or the Cydonia Institute website. And that's coming up in March. And working on a few books. I already have a book sitting waiting. I'm trying to find a publisher for, dealing with deer and avian geoglyphs on the surface of Mars that I've been working on for about 10 years, which is finally finished. And Bill and I were talking about doing a book because there's so much stuff here at the Acheron site that possibly this could turn into a book because there's so much stuff here.
Yeah,
I don't know what Bill's thoughts are, but we talking about this stuff in the background and private.
Right. That's cool, and I respect that, and listeners appreciate you filling them in because it's good to have anticipations and help our Imagineering departments and our minds twist and turn a little bit beyond the hand of brainwashing that's upon everyone now. God, all the money. So, but anyway, Tammy on Google Plus asks, when doing your research on the structures, have you seen any true resemblances of structures on Earth on Mars?
Is she talking about like regular buildings like we have?
I guess that's where she's going.
Yeah, we're only seeing like ruins of these kind of things, these foundations and stuff, and we're finding pictographs. There's a lot of geoglyphic formations on Mars, which you find on Earth, but we're not seeing any regular architectural buildings like you find on Earth. You're not going to look down and see New York City on Mars. You're going to see a different level of architecture, which Dr. Brandenburg thinks a lot of this stuff looks like the Bronze Age like technology, these domes and mounds like the American Indians built. And what we're seeing in this area here is a lot of these mounds appeared to have the tops ripped off, and we're seeing all of the infrastructure inside, all the buildings and all the libraries and the dance halls.
Didn't you find some structures that were very similar to buildings here on Earth in that three-sided pyramid area?
Yeah, well, they were just rectangular shapes, very geometric. But I think the caller's wanting to know if we're seeing any type of like city type formations that we have here on Earth, which we're not seeing any of that.
Right. If anything, they may all look like Bosnian pyramid-ish. And I had joked today on this show, and that entire region has been modified, has been created, has been sculpted, has been bricked, has been played. I say this looks like just like the features on Mars. Take away all the dirt and the trees and everything. We're seeing Mars structures, in my opinion. Again, you have to know the lay of the land a little bit to appreciate that more, do more research in that to appreciate it. The Bosnian pyramid, in a way, is similar to the DNM pyramid, believe it or not. The similar mindset as it was, and it would be really incredible if we could just uncover that whole region, but that ain't going to happen in our lifetimes or in anyone's allowing it to happen without acts of God, maybe pun intended, to make it happen. You know what I'm saying? But it is fascinating, and it just adds to the credibility and the validity of at least the basic synopsis of what is implicated through the things that we're discussing and stuff. So to me, I found that fascinating. But is there anything else you guys would like to get into? Because I guess we're climbing down to the close down to this show. And I really appreciate you guys being on, and it was needed. And it's nice for you, George, to come in and give us a heads up and, alerting us to what's coming and whatnot.
Well, it was a pleasure being on here with you, Gary. You got a great show here. You've been wanting to do this for a long time, I know. And I wish you, a lot of success for 2019 with your show.
Thanks a lot, and I appreciate that. And continue to give them my info if they ask you again, or provide it to those that were and or may be interested. I appreciate it. It's all cool, brother. And all right, what about you, Bill?
Yeah, thanks, Gary. Keep up the good work. You do some good research. You've uncovered some pretty interesting things on Mars yourself. So keep up the good work.
Thank you, sir. I'm still going at it. I'm on the hunt. Many of you guys know what I'm looking for. Yeah, I love finding things like this, but I'm on the hunt for some faces. And I've already found some. So if I find some of things that should not even exist, to me, that only adds more credibility and validity, 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 to the ones I'm actually looking for. And when I do find them, I'll leave it on that note. But again, thanks, guys, for being on. And you guys rock. And let's make the future. Because remember, it's only made by us. We have to make our fate. We have to make the Martian revelation our reality. We have to support Trump, and we have to get in and force We the People space program and take it back from the commies and the un-Americans and the traitors who not want us to go, let alone to know. Boy, who do I sound like? Sounds familiar.
Trump is going to make Mars great again.
Yeah, with our American boots leading the way, not the Chinese.
Right.
Indeed. It'll be built on our infrastructure. I definitely look forward to all that future history with you gentlemen on this show. Thank you very much, guys, for being on.
Thanks, Gary.
Thanks a lot, Gary.
All right, you guys have a good night. Thank you very much. So there you have it, peoples. George HAAS and William Saunders, or Bill, or Mr. Saunders, or Mr. HAAS, whatever you like to say. They are who they are, and they're no strangers to myself and the Martian revelation or to this research overall. And it's continuing to grow, and we must force it to grow, force it to be spoken about. All aspects, especially I was serious about the religious aspects there. I really want to get Mr. Pastor Joseph S. Terrell on here. And he would be probably a recurring guest because scriptural wise, he lays out a history and a scenario where the scriptures actually make sense, and it reinforces even what we're doing. And he's got answers for that too. And why not? How do we know it's not? Because I don't believe, but yet you'll believe in little green men. Bullshit. Wake up. Those who come down from the heavens, those who come, ancient aliens, or whatever, ancient humans. Interactions with something, forms higher than human. Intelligence. Like Dr. Gil Levin states, life is universal. Whether it's particles, chemicals, organics, it's universal. Makes you think of Jurassic Park, where Goldblum says life finds a way, coming out from the amber and going to an island filled with dinosaurs. And notice they're talking about being able to create and bring back some dinosaurs now. All those subjects are covered in the realms of the Martian revelation. Because where did life originate? Did it come from Mars? Or did we bring it to Mars? Or was there just life all over the place and something happened? A celestial war. Where, again, Pastor John S. Terrell, I think listeners to this show, whether they believe in King Holy Be Jesus or not, he could help you there. And I'm all for it, for spreading it. Because all roads, in my opinion, lead back to him. But I'm open. I'm a, investigator and researcher, too. And I'm not having no bias toward any of that. It's all got to be included. Why not? Why not? Who are we? We're just a dust, a speck in time, and our lives are fleeting and nothing and gone. It's vanity. Solomon was right. But anyway, so I'd like to thank everyone for coming on to the Global Enlightenment Radio Network. And soon also be streaming through we cover everything. WCET.FM. Forgive me, Mike, all these tongue twisters, all these changes, but that's what I wanted to talk about after these guests were on a little bit. Because people may be confused, or why I'm still with this one, or why I'm still out with that one. I'm going to tell you something without getting into too many details. I expected this. Listeners to this show can appreciate, they know where I'm coming from when I speak from the John Connor mindset. Nothing's coincidence. Things happen in time to help steer people. We are up against powers and principalities and the powers of the air, which means broadcasts, programming. And people's lives could easily be manipulated and steered just by those powers, and you think it's of your own thoughts and volition in your own footsteps. I'm not a fool, though many of you may think me now as one, but I'm not, am I? Because thinking from the John Connor mindset of everything that just went down recently seems to have really went down in such a way to where it would be the perfected form of attack to split up something, in my opinion, that should have kept going, and now it is. And I think all sides agree to that that's the best route that had to be taken. Misgivings and all implications and all circumstances, walking on our footsteps and what happens, and that creates situations that the cause and effect would apply. My opinion, it was a direct attack to destroy the Martian revelation, to destroy the shield, of which is the symbol of the future of the Martian revelation. To me, that's evidence, because that's what I see. And I'm not being paranoid. If you don't have the depth of mindset of the experience of what I have been through and or have seen and had to adjust to understand, especially from a John Connor point of view, one may not be able to see that. But let's just say the show ain't destroyed either way. Whether I'm speaking nonsense or crazy, I am Mad Martian after all. But the ties are still binding for this show, as well as to those who helped it come back through time. Despite the differences and things going on, that things happen. I'm caught in the middle. Why am I always the damn monkey in the middle?
Hey, Gary, I got to let you know something, brother. I refuse to let the Martian revelation go down. This is the reason why I started the Global Enlightenment Radio Network. This is the reason why. People, you got to understand, Martian revelation, revealing the information about Mars. Did you hear these two guests he had tonight? Did you understand what they were saying? Did you understand the question that Rick G did on the Global Enlightenment Radio Network? And it was something funny right then and there, Gary, because George HAAS says, I can't talk about it yet. Did you catch that?
Oh, yeah, well, with regards to what he was talking about, but yes, that all that's, again, powers, principalities, yeah, he caught the subconscious message.
But it's all about Mars.
You caught the subconscious message, and that's what this is about, and that's what this show has helped you all to see, to change your consciousness. Damn it, I did it again. Your consciousness says. Okay, and to which then we can face something that's invisible, but yet right there in front of all our eyes, which is the true universal languages, in my opinion, as it is. And I also got to give a shout out to my buddy Michael Deacon out there of End of Days Radio, because, you know, he's also very supportive of me, and I thank him for that. You know, and we were talking about, you know, doing stuff to where I transitioned to there. I mean, look, I didn't know what was going on. All I know is I had to leave it in God's hands. I can't get involved, but I care for people. Mike has been there. Without Michael Vera, I would not have even had the show back on the air, especially if he hadn't had the balls to do what he did. That offered so much promise or potential thereof, of what he worked all these years hard for. You got to respect that. And, you know, and I do. And I'm behind him 100%. I understand some of the feelings. Again, I'm not getting personal, but I can understand them. And I can understand because, again, we have another person involved who was just on, and, you know, it involves him, and it involves issues to where I'm, again, and the monkey in the middle. What the hell is it? I mean, damn it. But I am animal, according to these intelligences, to some anyway. Being asked a question. Surely no intelligent life could survive there. Through this whole fiasco of everything going down, and again, I understand everyone's sides. Everyone has reason. And there's a lot of cause and effect and harm there. You know, but things are meant to happen for a reason. And I have a feeling that the way things are going now is only because one day the Martian revelation is going to be a household name. And there's an enemy out there that John Connor must help cut off at the past down through time. We're on a new timeline now, a different future that's still trying to be fought for. That's why I'm here. That's why we're here. That's why Trump is here and not Hillary Clinton. You people have no idea what would have happened after she became president. They already sold us out. Red Dawn, you have no idea. But now it could be much different. And if it does go down, it'll go down in a different pace, and then we'll deserve it to happen. If we don't have the balls to speak up. There should be no power of corporation over we the people, of any foreign or domestic entity, saying what we can say or what we can't say because of their deceit and lies, because they know they're busted, and they know the fact that they didn't dumb us down enough to just follow them blindly while they led us to the slaughter. But this is a new timeline. It ain't going to go down like that, though that very high potential is still there. Look at the fear in everyone's eyes, and we the people. I grew up as, I'm a real 100% real American, born and bred in New York. And then to enjoy the sights and, well, the life that just happens when you're young, growing up in South Florida. This is not the same world as it was. People say Mandela effects. People say this or that, or multiple dimensions, inner blending of dimensions. Something's going on. Time has been crossed, time has been manipulated, and it's being done again here now, to where this timeline is key and essential for the future, to be won by we the people, and what needs to be done to secure a space force, to secure our position in space, closing off all our borders, getting rid of the UN and getting the UN out of the USA. Get the commies out. Get the evil out. Call evil what it is. The trans testicles, you think they're smarter enough and intelligent enough to get us up there to where we need to be as a species? They're all meant to keep us down on the farm and to stop our propagation. Wake up. Many of you won't, because you're human. You have your desires. You have your own thoughts. You have your own what? Free will. And they've learned how to program it and manipulate it good enough where they don't even want you to think you're a boy. If you got balls down there, they want to cut them off. That's not the future of America. This is not Sodom or Gomorrah. We have a chance here because of this new timeline. And it has been noticed, and it has been being helped. And it will be the outcome of what shapes the future for scriptures to be fulfilled. But at what point and how? We have a say in that. That's what prophecy is to give us warnings and historical facts. The newspapers before the news happens. Things could be changed and modified. Things don't have to go down that way. That's how it was seen, and that's how it will go down. But it don't have to be. Remember, Jonah reluctantly was sent to Nineveh. He was pissed that God didn't destroy the place. After it was already secured that that was the purpose. What happened? They repented. They changed. That changes outcome. In essence, that changes timelines. In that sense. There's a lot of fascinating subjects that covers in these subjects on this show. And it will. As I said, it will become a household name. Let the powers and principalities continue to do what they do. From this point on, as long as you guys be true to yourselves, and I'll just say adhere to the commandments, Pastor John S. Terrell, or Joseph Terrell, I always get his name messed up, will also attest to that fact. But that's my opinion, based on fact, that many of you don't like that opinion. But you believe in little green men that they're coming to save your ass. Think about what they may have been doing to us all along, if they are the enemies. Yes, think about it hard and long and true. Are they here leading us as it is? Embedded with us. Some say shape-shifting reptilians. Maybe. Or are we just crazy? Or are you who are blind to the scenario and the reality that when things would have happened, you would have been like, what? What's going on? When they come here and invade Red Dawn style or any other means, you're going to lay down for the slaughter. Because you're not even mentally strong enough to face what's coming. From outside this earth, let alone from on it. But that's what this show's about. Like Trump said, it's not just to defend ourselves from threats on this planet, but from the threats coming from deep space. And it must be us that has the infrastructure, secure our nation, at least to help defend it, keep it as a nation, where once it was gone. We're on a new timeline now, to where we can create that architecture for the rest of the world then to come in. And we, at least, they have a chance to face the threats coming from deep space. But again, who's coming from deep space? Pastor John S. Terrell or Joseph Terrell, whatever else his name is. No disrespect, sir. I love the guy. He lays that out of the possibilities you got to say if they're seriously considering what he would say. Well, it's certainly to be considered. It's not far-fetched. Who's the enemy coming from deep space? Who's the one that has the most to fall? Who's the one scriptured to fall? But yet come on the scene in time. It all depends. Or it may not be even connected. It just may be an alien race with a bunch of shitload of asteroids and planet Nibiru and all this other stuff. Or all that's entwined as well. It's going to be an amazing ride. But at least now we have, in my opinion, we have a right to know about it. We have a right to face it. We have a right to prepare for it. We have no choice. We're the money-making machines, the slaves. The wage slaves, the debt slaves. Keep going, you have a job. You're not worth nothing more than the buck that you make. And you will be overcome and you will be crushed. But if you can transition beyond that and we secure ourselves as a nation to face, so those things don't happen to us. It's a shame it happens to others. But again, the ruler of this world wants that to happen. He wants a one world government. You get it? Don't you see how things start to connect? I don't know. I don't know what I'm not trying to preach to you all. I'm just saying there's all convergences from mainstream science and all these theories and things we're seeing. There's a war going on. And something happened that really helped create a rift. At least enough all sides agree it's time for change. Things were meant to be, they would continue on, and things will only progress, but you guys got to be true to yourselves. And true to the intelligence leading us, because he's watching us and judging us. Yeah, Mean Green, a war in heaven. More ways than one. Oh, war for the heavens. Megadeth there. Megadeth. HAAS? What a threat's coming from deep space. It'll be much easier for a threat coming from deep space that's intelligent enough that they may be intelligent to have it set up for the means down through time that they help weed off us animals from the surface of the earth. Make it easier to do what needs to do. Breakaway civilizations, ancient aliens. Maybe. They all could still be applied, even until the scriptural aspects. That's where the convergence is going. What is the Martian revelation ultimately going to entail? It's not just about Mars. I'll tell you that much. But like Mr. Selyates once told me, I got to have faith. I got to believe. I got to believe. Because he knew what I was going to face. I'm convinced of that. I know many of you think I'm nuts. But in time will only show. But look how he showed no matter what. Good or better, I appreciate any listeners. I'm looking for people with balls. That at least 2% of the listeners will come out and help me fight a fight that demands to be won. Many of you know that subject and that story. I don't want to get into that tonight. But I still need your help. But I'm not the only one that needs help. This is all for a reason, to help an intelligence that wanted us to see this shit down through time, to utilize it, to warn us, to guide us. And it infiltrated. It tried to destroy the show. Any means of it being out there. The powers of the princes of the principalities and the powers of the air can make many things happen. They put thoughts in people's heads. People attributed them to demons. And even ufologist researchers I've had on this show also admit that that's a potential reality. Interdimensional beings coming out from like the spirit world as it was. Well, they have a name for that. Demons. Or just extra dimensional beings. Oh, it all depends. And they still all could be true. It just has to change our consciousness for us to grasp and accept the possibilities so we can connect those dots. Bill said an amazing thing this night. It's hard to find something that you're not looking for. Even when you see it right in your face, pun intended, like UFO Diaries, www.thefacesofmars.com. Scroll down that page. Watch UFO Diaries. Look at the controversy and conspiracy of the Faces of Mars cover-up. Controversy down through time. To understand that. But all people involved that care about this show, I appreciate. And I know there's many frictions, and we don't need to get into that. And they know that I'm not a punk bitch, and I ain't going to play one against the other or attack one for the other or vice versa, because then I wouldn't be worthy of their respect. And I certainly wouldn't be being streamed through either of their networks or whatever else. The Martian Revelation's still here. My enemy, I'm sure, in front of me is out there. We're probably all gleeful, popping those bottles. Not of the wine I'm waiting for, by the way. That's the type of juice that they're drinking, and they want to drink that dumbs them down to ignore this. But they could like a, oh yeah, and you could also mention, to the show on thefacesofmars.com each week, knock on wood, through the player. You press play, just above my mug there. The lightsaber points the way to the play, to the play button. Powered up. The force be with you. So many people wondering, sending me messages and emails. By the way, MarsRevealer@gmail.com. MarsRevealer@gmail.com. If you want to email me, if you got any music or if you got any ideas, you got any questions, got any info, or if you're a potential guest that would like to be on the show, or if you'd like to share something anonymously with the public. I respect people that way. Till you screw me over. And even then, to where I would reveal certain things. It would only be because it's part of my investigation and needed to be seen, especially when I have to defend myself from something so impossible, but certainly not improbable, especially now that it's coming to light in these days of the Martian revelation that's upon you all now. I think I wanted to focus on more and everything, but you know what? Maybe I've said enough. I respect everyone involved, and you know, who am I to judge? But I will say this, that there are people and forces out there to make things and create things and use people's past to try to paint pictures that's untrue because of someone's advantages that they can have at such a deed. But I'm going to tell you this, karma is a bitch. And we just have to roll with what life tells us. It's better things happen now than later, I'll just say. And that's where it should be left at. But I stand with Mike Vara of WCET. We cover everything, .fm. And I stand with Global Enlightenment Radio Network. Because without any of the, he's also part of it. Been part of the show. More, you know, it's a very hard road. I'm not taking sides. I understand each side's positions. And I'm their friend. That's all I could do. And I'm just thankful that despite all that and this connection with this show, that each side is still willing to put this out there for the benefit of the people. They certainly ain't making shit off me. I ain't making nothing. But hey, you want to help the Martian revelation and help us change and make our fate for the future, to secure the Martian revelation for all of us and our nation and the world? Please donate to the Martian revelation. All proceeds will go to the betterment of this program and the stability of it, when obviously the forces through time have their powers and principalities and the powers of the air trying to bring it down. And I know how I sound. Doesn't matter. Because this new timeline is still secured despite the facts of what goes on. And no matter what, the show would continue. And again, I want to give a shout out to Michael, Deacon of End of Days. He's also got balls. And a very worthy show to listen to. Michael Vara's Late Night in the Midlands. Again, without things happening that's even beyond our control, that just happens with life, is what shaped this fate that we're making. And I ain't letting it go. Because as I see it, I see a major system error. And hopefully I intend to fix it. But at least continue on. So, I guess with that, I should stop ranting. I am kind of tired. I'm getting over being sick. If there's any listeners there, thank you for listening. I know I'm not the most articulate guy or Art Bell type scenario, but that's not what the future needs. Now the future needs balls, and it needs someone with balls to lead that future. To help change your consciousness, because we are in a fight for our destiny of the Martian revelation. That's upon you all now. Good night.
I can see your major system error in you. You think 1 plus 7, 7, 7 makes 2. If your story ever gets out, can you keep it together? Can you keep it together? Don't make me break
this up again, but I probably would have because I was still curious, and it wouldn't leave. But anyway, of what it ascribes and the whole scenario that pans out, communication with Mars and how society was breaking down, coal factories, the Soviet Union was having problems, that the Soviet Union collapsed, and one grand finale at the end. Again, I don't want to say, but it's definitely, if you would see that film, you'd be like, and Brookings was when? 58? Yeah. And this movie was 1952? I mean, it was total match. I mean, of the worst case scenario. So I just find that ironic.
Gary, the films from the 50s and the books, I mean, even for the German scientists, the German rocket scientists, there was a Ladswitch, I think I'm pronouncing his name incorrectly.
The Nazis, the real Nazis that we got from Operation Paperclip. But
it's all part of it, man. It's all part of it, and even they were inspired. I mean, the scientists are beyond all the